back to another episode of Collector's Quest. I'm Tyler, here with Johnny, and we have returning a special guest, the third co-host of the show, Stephen Reese, a man you might remember who started his art collection with a giant perler of Chrono Trigger, and now he has the original map to Dragon Quest.
That's also true.
You should use that as your story, by the way.
That perler is in the back of my closet.
Oh, man, it's not even hanging up anymore?
No, it is.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
Was it on your ceiling for a while?
It has partially to do with the sheer size, and then partially to do with the guy who made it kind of fell off the deep end, and I don't know, I feel weird about it.
Oh, no. That sounds like a bad story.
It just, in the COVID times when people became like super weirdo political activists on one side or the other, he went one way on it.
Yeah, Johnny knows who it is, and he got real weird.
Yeah, and you're all entitled to your politics, but like that is 100% not why I am on Instagram.
Yeah. So hi.
I want to see your games. Yeah. Hey, Stefan.
Hi.
Welcome.
I'm happy to be back. I guess we should talk a little bit about sort of what you and I talked about, just real quick, Johnny. The other day, my life has gotten a lot. It's a lot more than it was previously. So I am not absolutely 100% not going to abandon the show. I love doing it. I love all of y'all. And I only ever get really positive reception from everyone. So I am absolutely going to still be doing the show. But we're probably going to be a little bit more selective as to which of the shows that I participate in, just to give me a little bit of the bandwidth that I need right now. So not going away forever. But just the frequency of seeing me is going to probably be a little bit less.
Hey, no problem, Kat.
Yeah. No, except for
no.
I'm going to
exactly
say that
what
and then
happened.
do it. That's the difference.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Jokes for you long-termers.
Jokes.
Yeah. These are the jokes, people. I'm sorry. No, the podcast is a labor of love. It's an endeavor, so it should not get in the way of actual life. So yeah, join when you can. And anyways, Tyler, I have some news for you. Anyways, now that we've wowed you with stunning weather conversation, my apologies. Tyler probably gonna have to cut all of that.
I'm going to cut all
to make
don't worry.
to make it a listenable episode. Let's talk about this episode. We have an episode for you guys that I wanted to get into. This one is my fault, so if you're looking to blame anyone, and I'm calling it Set Killers. Tyler, is that okay by you?
That's fine with me, Johnny.
Stefan,
Maybe
Set
put
Killers
an
is okay?
asterisk next to it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna explain the premise of the set killer and what I'm talking about. In other episodes, especially the So You Want to Collect, we talk about games that are hurdles or set killers, things that stop your progress from completing a set. They slow you down. They're too expensive. They're too rare. Think of stadium events and the 676 versus 677. People create mental gymnastics on getting around it. They don't count things. These are the set killers. They might be rare, they might be expensive, they might be both, they might just not be available at all to purchase. So these are the things we kind of wanted to get into. Like I said, we hit on them in every episode we do, almost like one just gets brought up or anytime we talk about a new system. But I wanted to just condense all of it, and not all of it because there's going to be some systems we'll leave out. We could even do a part 2 to this. But I want to have a place where if you're new to listening or if you're someone who just wants some information on one specific topic, like all of them, without having to listen to, 10 So You Want to Collect episodes. We can put it all right here. So that's this episode. We're going to go through a bunch of systems. We've got some does it count stuff we're going to go over. We're going to define what a set is before we get into it. So that's the episode. Yeah.
If you want an episode that's condensed into all the information as to why you shouldn't collect any sets ever, this is the one for you.
Yeah. Or if you want to know what people have invested in, these are. I mean, we got some interesting notes in here. It's not just expensive. And Tyler, we're going to have some counterpoints. This also just is. It's going to be a lot of list stuff, but it is also a conversation about, do we actually count these things as set killer? And I'm going to let Tyler kind of go into that a little bit.
I mean, yeah, because we literally have a list here of 50 platforms or something, and we're not going to go over all of them because I think most consoles don't have a set killer. Because if there is something preventing you from collecting the full set, if there's like one game that prevents you from collecting a full set, that's a pretty rare situation. For something like Nintendo DS, where there's 2,000 games, the size of the Nintendo DS set is the set killer. People look at that and they see like how many obscure games there are for the DS, and they're like, and how uninteresting those obscure games are. Sorry, DS people. I mean, there's a lot of really weird, rare, uninteresting DS games.
The top NDS games are trash.
That is what prevents you from collecting the full set of Nintendo DS games, which is an objectively insane thing to do.
That was a driving force behind why I never started PS2. I mean, despite all of the encouragement, I looked at that set and I was just like,
I don't think PS2 is like a really cool and interesting and historic set. I think you should probably get the
maybe you want to get back into set collecting. Like, wouldn't that be a cool display
that's
to
what
bring?
I want to do.
Yeah, like a cool thing to bring around with your art display is maybe a set.
The set
PS2 games.
Okay, the show with 40 easels, the show already takes me 4 hours to set up and break down. I can't wait to haul a PS2 set around.
I mean, if you really loved video games like you say you do, you would do it.
I mean, game history is dying because I'm not.
I mean, who is out there repping the PS2? Practically no one.
That's right. Who cares about PS2?
Yeah, like who will stand up for the PS2?
No one.
Yeah. Just like so you guys know, if you don't like that, like one of the most sold systems or most bought systems all time ever, longest lasting, biggest library, not an accident. Just all right.
Just in case anyone didn't catch the reference, we're being sarcastic because PS2 is the most popular console of all time. Okay, just making sure everybody got that.
You know, we were asked to like explain ourselves sometimes, so some people don't pick up sarcasm, so you just got to put that sarcasm warning on there.
All right.
Very pleased to be back.
I think, so we do have a lot of games here. We'll talk about a bunch of them. I think the real thing that defines a set killer is when you have a bunch of collectors that try to define the game out of existence. So all sets are made up. Everyone slices and dices the actual full set of every game for a platform. They want to get their region. They only want to get the licensed games. Some people only want to get the retail games, whatever means.
Let's talk about what is a set. Like talk about how people, you're kind of going into it, but this is what most people define as a set. Go.
I mean, what most people, when you're talking about sets, I'd say most people probably want a set from their region, so from America, from Europe, and they only want like one of each black label game. They usually don't want budget releases. And if it's a system that has both licensed and unlicensed games, actually, no, this only counts for really NES, maybe Super Nintendo. They only want the licensed ones. But again, they're like Sega Genesis. No one cares about licensed versus unlicensed, so I can't even make a blanket statement like that. But yeah, they generally want the games from their region, one of each game, not the exciting variants. Sometimes they want multi-packs and box sets. Sometimes they don't. It depends on the platform. There's no consistency, and it drives me insane. Sometimes publisher variants matter. Sometimes they don't. I don't know why. Nothing matters. Oh.
One thing that I thought was just anecdotally, one thing I think was interesting the other day as I was noticing a lot of the people who have like 360 sets don't have like any or many of like the big box like statue releases and all that fucking garbage that no one should care about that would make your game room look like a GameStop. But that's their set, right? They just want one, the base release is fine. They don't need the collector's edition statues of Tron Legacy.
I mean, they do need it. They just don't know that they need it.
That's fair.
I mean, I think you see the same thing in like the sealed market. I mean, the sealed market for the super modern stuff is so small and so new. But I think it's clear that people are probably going to go after like, a first print of BioShock with the cardboard sleeve rather than get the stupid one with the broken arm limited edition just for space reasons.
I have him sitting on my desk.
I know yours arm isn't broken. So cool.
It isn't broken, yeah. Which I lost out on the actually objectively more rare art book that you would get for having a broken arm.
Yeah, but who cares? Our books suck.
It's true.
All right, Johnny, let's just start with stadium events. I know we kind of had this in chronological order, but stadium events is probably
it's the best because it's the best example.
The definition of a set killer, because man, it is so weird that there is the exact same game and it's like a $5 cartridge, and now stadium events just sold on Whatnot. So I mean, like, do like the sign of the cross and like, I don't know what you do when something sells on Whatnot, but it doesn't make any sense. But a poor condition, a mediocre condition card, it has like a stain on it, sold for like 30 grand on Whatnot.
Whoa,
So
the cart.
Sorry, cart
what
only?
the fuck is going on? Oh yeah, it was card only.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, just complete bananas. There's like a cartridge on eBay now. Someone listed it. I know eBay, whatever. It's like $150,000 or something.
Yeah, whatever. You can say whatever you want. Yeah.
I know. But yeah, stadium events. So I think there's some people who try to define it out of existence. To me, I don't see a lot of it. To me, it doesn't make sense, because if you're going to define one of the games out of existence, obviously world-class track meet is the one to define out of existence, not stadium events. I think more people just get 676 out of 677, and they're okay with it as a set. They're just like, yeah, I know stadium events is part of the full set, but I'm just getting the set without stadium events. And everyone seems to be happy with that arrangement. Except
You know
for
what?
the people.
I've gone the other way, where now Stadium Events is the only NES game I own.
What? You don't have a copy of Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario 3?
I don't think I do, actually. I do not. Well, I have my that's true. My childhood copy of Super Mario Brothers 3. That's true.
Is that it? What is your collection?
I have NES games, literally NES games. The only ones that I own right now are my loose signed copy of fucking Jeopardy, my childhood copy of Mario 3, and fucking stadium events.
So you don't have a Mario Duck Hunt?
No, I do
wonder
not.
how many people have a stadium events that don't have Mario Duck Hunt.
Probably some of those investors.
I mean, there's so many graded at WADA. At least I don't think they released it, but according to the leaked reports, there's like dozens that have been graded at WADA. So yeah, you're probably.
I have a handful of Famicom games, if that makes you feel better.
That doesn't.
Not really. Yeah, it's its own set.
Anyway, I don't even know what the price of a stadium events is, because the last one sold for 30 grand, but it's Whatnot, so whatever. But probably 20 grand. I mean, maybe 30 grand. I mean, if we are taking price history as something that matters, Stadium Events is now a $30,000 cartridge. But man, I have a really hard time taking Whatnot prices as fact, just because loose carts sell for like complete and box price on some of the rare games there.
I don't at all care about fucking sales data, so I'm happy to, or hoarding sales data. So I'm happy to tell you that the last offer I got on mine that was actually serious was 17,000.
Okay.
For a 7.5, I think is my 7.5 loose cart.
Yeah,
but yours is
don't
graded.
make offers on Stefan Stadium Events though. So
yeah, so but his is graded, right, Stefan?
Yes.
And this was not graded, and it was in worse condition.
That's bananas.
I would guess it's a 5.5, maybe a 5.0. Who knows?
So, I mean, unless you count those water grades, like some people say they count, it's probably an 8.
I think our jokes are out of date there, Johnny, because I think they've tightened up their grading, and now grading stuff is harder. So
probably they've also released some statements and stuff lately about like improving in service. I don't care. I'm not into any of that. You guys will be surprised. No, I don't follow it. I don't care.
I mean, I follow it a lot less lately.
Can we just talk about how it like? I don't hear collectors being upset about the insane prices being set at Whatnot. Like when WADA set crazy prices through Heritage auctions, people were mad. All the collectors that were never buying sealed games anyways were super mad at the prices. But now Whatnot is like a boon of insane prices on games like that we would actually buy, Tyler. And I don't hear collectors going, Whatnot is the worst thing ever. We should burn this thing to the ground because all the prices are insane now.
I would hazard to guess, I could be wrong, we can talk about it.
No, yeah,
but
guess.
that the accusations of collusion between WADA and Heritage have a lot to do with what spurned those attitudes.
Fair. Totally a fair point. But I mean, people were upset that the prices went up too. That was like the other thing. Like, oh, you're driving the prices.
Oh, yeah.
Whatnot is driving the prices up like crazy, but I just haven't heard the same kind of like, I don't know, are people just like happy their stuff is finally being like, look at it go up in value. I don't know what's going on. It's just confusing to me. That's not the point of this episode. And I'm not mad at Whatnot either. I don't care. It's just like, wow, that is a lot of money suddenly going into Whatnot for video games. Like if a stadium event is selling for 3,000 plus, and you can tell us who it was, Tyler, because I don't remember, but they sold the whole NES collection and the prices were crazy. Like across the board.
Josh
crazy.
Hamblin. But yeah, he sold a full NES set. And I mean, again, just because the concept of selling a full NES set, meaning every single one of your holes you could fill in this thing. If you just made it more than the next guy, you could fill all your holes.
Got him.
Shut the fuck up.
Sorry to edit
But
that
also, is Whatnot pushing up game prices? Because you know what? If a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? There's no price history of this stuff anywhere. The price history for like the stadium events that sells the Little Samson, that sells the KO Flying Squadron, that sells, those get posted on Facebook. There's like screenshot history of that. But who remembers price history of like random sales on Whatnot?
Another fair point.
Because I don't know anything that goes on Whatnot until people are like, holy shit, stadium events sold for $30,000.
Also true. I just wanted to have the quick conversation while we're talking about NES games.
Yeah. Can I posit one more thing on the topic?
Sure.
Before we move on, I also wonder, and this could be a bad take, but like with the heritage boom, it was like, hey, here's this like all the people who've been collecting forever. Like, here's this tiny niche that nobody cared about that is now like everyone's making fucking crazy money off of this thing that we weren't collecting. And so we feel left out. Whereas Whatnot is like, the tide is rising on all of the shit that everyone does have and everyone was collecting. And so now it's like yay, we're all getting rich.
Yeah,
it's not the
rising
fucking
tide,
right.
A rising tide raises all boats. That's
Right.
what you're going for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, and that's what I was kind of saying. Like maybe because everyone's just suddenly being bankrolled by this event, they're like, okay, that's fine. I don't know. And I think Tyler might be onto it too. That there's just no history, and maybe people don't know or don't care because they're not looking at it. It's just some of that will get eventually rolled into eBay, but eBay is already insane too. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that all these prices were crazy. But back to the main thrust of this episode, stadium events being the definition of a set killer. And now we'll and I believe you're right, Tyler. Like it is the premier set killer. It's like it's what formed the idea for me, because I have 677 games, depending on how you count.
Shut up, Johnny.
What?
Because depending on how you count, I'm sure you have more than 677.
I do. But of the set, do I own a stadium events? Yes, I do. Is it from this region? No, it is not. So, or maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe I actually own 2 stadium events. I'll never tell you guys.
If there's a set killer, is it worth buying something that's not really the same thing to fill that hole in your heart, Johnny? I guess you would say the answer is yes.
I would say that in the case of the stadium events I got, it was a trade. So I didn't spend any money on it.
Also, for clarity, it was from me.
True.
So I guess my question would be, had that cart not been from me or from Tyler or like that level of friend, would you have gone and like sought it out?
No, and that we can tell that's true because when did I get that cart? It was during the pandemic from you, Stefan?
Yeah,
early pandemic.
Yeah.
So 2020. So we have 16 years of history where I did not go buy it.
That's fair.
In any form. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go.
I don't like the placeholders, and I like PAL Stadium Events is kind of also the poster child of a placeholder, even though like
it is,
because it's the poster child of a placeholder. It's like $1,000 game now when it never was renamed in Europe. It's just that European games are in general rarer than the American versions.
I want to do the placeholder episode, like
that's on
what
the episode
games have.
That's definitely
is it
on the
okay?
List.
Okay. Yeah.
The mental stress that of me second guessing whether I'm doing mental gymnastics to try to trick myself that I have completed the set with like a PAL Stadium Events, that would put more mental load on me than just knowing that I don't have the set. So that's why I don't have a PAL Stadium Events. because I don't want to think like, yeah, I intend to upgrade it to an NTSC real copy one day, but it's just there. It's only gonna be there for like a few years. We're gonna get one eventually. Like, just thinking about that is worse than not having it for me.
See, what I would argue that having it there means when you're like moving your games around that you maintain accurate spacing the whole time.
I have a blank box protector where my Stadium events will go one day. Honestly, at this point, I'm probably not going to get a Stadium events.
Why not? It's only 30,000 for a loose cart.
Even at like 10,000, there's just the more I've expanded my gaming horizons here, it seems insane to spend that much on a loose cartridge that essentially doesn't matter. And I do think Stadium Events is still really cool and a really cool collectible game. It's just that when I'm getting like, really rare, weird Apple II computer games for $200, it's like, holy shit, no one has all this is like historic. And I could get 50 of those or a Stadium Events. Did I do that math right? No, because I used Stadium Events old price. I could get 150 games like that versus Stadium Events cartridge. Then I'm one of those people who's not going to complete my set yet.
Well, it's interesting. You think that Stadium Events is cool, and I don't. I think it is like the least interesting, like, whoops story in all video games. Mm-hmm. And it's like
it's an interesting story from a historical perspective.
Yeah, but I mean, the game itself is not particularly interesting.
I would agree.
And you can also still play this game in another form, and like that's where it's confusing. It's like, you can go play this game. You can own this game on it. But you'll be like, this is the set. I'm like, I just don't care. I don't care about that at all. And it is to Nintendo, to collectors, but I think like the collective mind of pop culture, and I've always been on the side that like, I think the pop culture element is more useful and interesting than like this one random story, which we haven't even like, that gets told like it's lore, which might not even be true, the recall and all that stuff. Like, I just don't care about it. I can't make myself care, which is why I didn't go after that. Even, and I've told this many times, I've had the ability to buy Stadium Events at multiple junctions, at multiple prices within my budget, and I still was never like, yeah, I'm going to grab that. I just really don't care. And even though my OCD brain is like, we should complete sets, for some reason, that game was not interesting enough to me, and that's not just the price, because I've paid money for games. I just did not care. What I would say is more interesting is do the world set, and then you don't have to worry about it. So you just want one game from every region, like every game that was ever made, regardless of name changes. You just like, I want one. And then you can get your Stadium Events from whatever region you...
But then you open yourself up to games that are rarer than Stadium Events.
Yeah, that's fine. But see, that's more interesting, because those games are way more interesting a story than Stadium Events. And you could still own a Stadium Events.
What's that Mahjong game, Tyler? Right?
Yeah, Mahjong from Hong Kong, potentially the rarest licensed NES game. I mean, we have it on the list. We might as well say like Phantom Air Mission, which is Flight of the Intruder in Europe, and Snowboard Challenge, which is Heavy Shreddin', are both like maybe not on the level of Stadium Events, but those are definitely, if you would call them set killers for the PAL NES set, if there are people who collect. I don't know how the people collect PAL NES sets with PAL A and PAL B and all that, but yeah, those are among the rarest PAL games.
And what do we know prices on those at all?
There are 2 Phantom Air Mission complete in boxes on eBay Spain right now, which is like an anomaly because that game is supposed to be really rare. There's an auction right now ending today, which is at a little over 3,000 euros, and I think there's a buy it now for 5,000. Which, I mean, it's low compared to something like Stadium Events, but it's also like, you know, let's say it's a $4,000 game, and like, who the fuck cares about Phantom Air Mission, the Spanish NES release, but it's worth $4,000. When you think of rare and expensive PAL games, you think of Gimmick, which came out in Scandinavia. These are rarer than Gimmick. No one cares about them, but they're either equal in price or more expensive than Gimmick. I don't know what a Gimmick goes for now. 3,000?
Yeah, we talked about it. I want to say in January.
Okay.
We were talking about Gimmick. Anyways, let's move it back. I mean, now that we've kind of defined what set killers look like, we're going to talk about some other games that may or may not be set killers. We'll talk about why they are, what the prices are and stuff. But let's go into RCA Studio 2 and Atari as one conversation, since you put them on.
As one conversation.
Yeah, because what am I going to offer you on the RCA Studio? Okay, the game is bingo. It's a set killer if anyone is weird enough to be collecting the RCA Studio 2.
Didn't we just talk about this because VG Collectaholic just got one?
No,
I don't know.
No, have we not brought up RCA Studio 2 bingo on the show? Okay.
I hope not. If you did, I fell asleep.
So this is fascinating. It's almost like stadium events. I think it's fascinating. This is like really one of like the top vintage game, like super weirdo people games. I think there's probably single digits that exist. Maybe there's double
Probably
digits.
A good shout out for VG Collectaholic. Super weirdo video game people.
Absolutely. Right. So RCA Studio 2, a console no one cares about. Totally understand that. They were going to make the RCA Studio 3, and they were going to do a similar thing like Game Boy Color with those black Game Boy cartridges where they made backwards compatible color games that worked on the old platform. And one of these games was going to be bingo. Yes, there was going to be a color bingo game for the RCA Studio 3, just an absolute blockbuster. But then the RCA Studio 3 got canceled, and along with it, this backwards compatible sort of RCA Studio 2/3 game, Bingo, was canceled, but copies were already produced. So technically, according to most people, it was unreleased, but there are a couple copies out there that are definitely not like prototypes. They are the game Bingo, and it's one of the rarest games ever made. But because it was maybe unreleased, where did they come from? People like to discount it from the set. I think it's clearly a set killer because, like, if you collect RCA Studio 2, you basically can't have this unless you're one of the 5 people who have one.
Yeah, so this isn't necessarily because it's rare or not. It's because it's rare. I mean, it's probably valuable too, but the killing aspect here is good luck finding it. This will kill you because you're never finding it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
You see, but so it's not just that it's rare, it's also that the story is that it was canceled supposedly and never came out. So
yeah.
But is there good enough info about games from like 1980 or whenever this was supposed to come out? Like maybe there's a Radio Shack that sold some in Oklahoma.
Yeah, seeing as there's bad info about what games came out for the Xbox One last month, I'm going to go ahead and say the info could be bad. Yeah. But I don't know. I think the people who cared about that were probably looking very hard for reasons why it does exist. Anyways, it's an interesting idea that it may or may not exist. I would put it in the does it count bubble and then let other people who really care about that system decide because they have more at stake than I do.
All right.
But when we talk about each game, let's talk about what aspect, if it kills the set actually, or if it doesn't. So I thought it was good that you did that. Now let's talk about Atari. What kills the Atari set, Tyler, since you love vintage trash?
I do love it. Because the Atari set is that you can't collect a complete set, and it's
Why not?
There's no argument about it. There's not one game. There's not 2 games that will stop you from completing a set. Everyone going into Atari knows, like, oh yeah, I just can't complete the set. It's just not a thing. So people don't try. I mean, people try to collect as many Atari games as possible, but no one has ever gone into it with the notion, oh yeah, I'm going to get every Atari game, or even every Atari game minus Gamma Attack or something, because there are so many Atari games that, again, have like this single-digit, double-digit type rarity, and maybe not so many, but enough that it would be unfeasible to get them all. And I'm talking about games like Gamma Attack, Birthday Mania, Extraterrestrials, Red Sea Crossing. All these games are just super, super duper rare.
Yeah, what I think is also interesting there is that Atari was the Wild West. Nintendo, once you got to Nintendo, things became a lot more structured. But Atari, like who could publish and like distribute games and like what counts, it is way more nebulous. It just doesn't exist. There's plenty of lists out there which tell you what all the Atari games, but you don't know like how many were actually released. Not that we have like good print runs, but we have ideas if it was an official Nintendo game, how many were released. Like it's an obtainable object rather than 1 or 2 of these games, which like maybe one guy made 10 of and like sold locally, to electronic stores.
I think that's the story of Red Sea Crossing, which is like a religious game, which did not have any distribution. It was literally just a guy who made it. But if you were going to pick a set killer, if you had to point your finger to one, Gamma Attack, one known copy ever found. I don't know. There's probably someone like followed up and figured out who made it and how many were made, but Gamma Attack is certainly the game.
Yeah, I mean, and that's Atari though. I mean, in the once you get to the Nintendo set collectors, we really got this rigid. Let's put borders on this and really cut things out of the set so we don't have to deal with bullshit except for stadium events. And now we'll cut that one out too. So Nintendo collectors got it done. They know how to tame a set and make things not count. See every unauthorized game ever. Hey, looking at you, Sachin. Anyways, yeah, I don't believe those. Like, I have no nostalgia for those, so I don't give a shit about those games. But let's see, Stefan, we're gonna just move, even though this is further like along, but this is like in history. We're not necessarily doing chronological order, but I want to give you a chance to talk here.
Well, thank you.
Tell me about the 3DO a little bit, because this is your specialty.
Everybody knows that I love 3DO, and if you don't, let me tell you, last year I had, after amassing 12 North American sets, I dumped almost all of them back into the stream. The 2 that I kept was Super Nintendo and the 3DO, because the 3DO was awesome. It's also ridiculously difficult to collect CIB just in general at the level of like the Game Boy, in that like the boxes were huge. A lot of the titles were like edutainment titles that were strictly pointed at children, like the game I'm about to talk about. So nobody kept boxes, etc., etc. So Dino Park Tycoon is far and away the set killer for 3DO. And
is it a real set killer though, or is it not an actual set? Is it just expensive, or is it a set killer?
Yeah, it is both, right? So it is, not only is it very expensive in, relative to, obviously it's not a fucking $30,000 stadium events cart, but relative to the set, it is far and away the most expensive at around anywhere. So here's the thing. There's very little sales data for it because it sells so infrequently. It's basically selling less than once a year, complete. And but it's been hovering in the $3,000 to $4,000 range. But a lot of that, some of that is private sales data. Some of that, actually, to find the most recent sale, I had to look at Heritage and for, of all crazy places. And that was just for poor condition CIB copy that went for $3,600. But so this definitely has both, right? It's expensive compared to the relative cost of the rest of the set, but it's also just fucking impossible to find a copy. I bought my copy at least 5 years ago now, and even though that's been 5 years, it's still within the realm of the last 5 copies that have sold. So it's just incredibly rare and annoyingly expensive compared to the rest of the set. It's I don't know what else. The other thing that makes it really difficult to search for and annoying to search for, aside from that you'll never find it, is that it is also very poorly labeled on other SKUs. So it's out there for the PC, it's out there for the Mac. And so a lot of the sales data that is out there is bad because it's here's because on the PC it's a $5 game, CIB.
Yeah, I just found one for $10. I thought you said this was hard to find.
Exactly. And that will sort with the 3DO stuff because the algorithms are terrible. But yeah, so it's annoying to find. Not quite as annoying as looking for D for the PlayStation. That's awful. But it's annoying to find and very expensive and incredibly rare. So
not a set killer. Game. I'm laying down the hammer.
All right.
Oh, why do you say so?
If you collected, I don't know how many 3DO games there are. I'm just going to say 150. If you collected all those, and after you get halfway through the 3DO set, I'm sure there are a bunch of Carrier Fortress at Seas and the Woody Woodpecker video CDs.
Look at you knowing stuff about 3DO, Tyler.
If you get through all that garbage and all you have left is Dino Park Tycoon, that's why this game sells for $4,000, because once you get through all that, you're just going to buy it. You don't give a shit. You've already done it. You've made it this far.
But you can't buy it, Tyler.
But
it's not out there to buy.
It's a set on hold putter. Because when it comes up, the people who have 3DO sets, no one is going to just quit. because of the cost. They're gonna fucking find one.
They're just lying in wait.
Yes. Because I don't think there are that many people out there who have like a 3DO set missing only Dino Park Tycoon. Like there's probably some amount of people, but it's nowhere near like stadium events where there's so many people who collect NES sets minus stadium events.
Do you mean Nintendo was more popular than the 3DO?
But
thanks for that insight.
More people have not
Jesus
collected
Christ.
3DO sets just because of either the general obscurity of 3DO or not caring about 3DO.
Cool take.
That's fair. So I'll roll right into the other 3DO game that I wanted to talk about, if that's cool with you, Johnny.
Yeah, do it.
So there is a game, and I use the term game loosely, because the 3DO was one of those disc-based systems in the era where they were just trying to figure out what disc-based systems
It was a
should do.
multimedia system.
Right. So there were definitely a lot of just like, hey, here's some videos. Like, Tyler mentioned the Woody Woodpecker VCDs, which they're just episodes of Woody Woodpecker, literally on disc, and they're incredibly rare. Because they were going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to do all of these cartoon releases for, animated releases for the 3DO, and then they never did. So there's only a handful of them. There's a shitload of porn games on the 3DO, but there's also a lot of like sports instructional videos, and so this is one of them. It's Lower Your Score with Tom Kite shot making. Which was going to be it's the first in what was going to be a series. It spoiler alert, never made it to be a series. But the thing this is also not only is this sort of a little bit of a set killer from a it's not out there perspective, but also it kind of falls into the does it count category as well. In that there was a registration card in the game, quote unquote game. If you sent it in, you could get a disc back from them that was called Mental Messages, and it was just more instructional video about the game of golf. And the reason, so it is labeled, they do talk about it as a bonus disc, but the reason why the does it count conversation come into play is because on the disc it is labeled as disc 4. So Tom Kite is a 3-disc instructional thing. And this is labeled as the 4th disc of that set. So the argument there is that without that 4th disc, your copy of Tom Kite is not complete, which is frustrating. And so, however, Tom Kite Mental Messages is not terribly expensive when it comes up, mostly because, as we've talked about, there aren't a tremendous amount of 3DO collectors, but also it's a little bit on the obscure side as far as like knowledge base, so there's a lot of people just don't understand that it's there to collect. There's some other releases out there like that, like a revision disc for not Time Killers. What the hell's the name of that FPS? Something Killers. Killing Time. But yeah, so people don't really know that it's out there. So it's not terribly expensive at like in the like $300 to $500 range when it comes up.
Not terribly expensive. Oh, this golf instructional CD, you could spend $500 on it.
Yeah, no, for sure. But the thing is, it just doesn't come up. Like I'm saying $300 to $500 because I'm just using my own memory of around what I paid for this copy that I have in my hand.
Pre-pandemic, you did this.
Yeah. And so they're not there to be had. There's no sales data currently right now on the internets for them. So yeah. To Johnny's point, $300 to $500 pre-pandemic, but again, very little demand. I think maybe it's different now when we're to come up, but yeah, so it's if you decide that your copy your copy of Tom Kite is not complete without this disc, then it certainly is a set killer because it's very difficult to find.
This is a save search I gave up on. I searched through. I didn't have Mental Messages as my
Tyler
save search.
saying that, so
I
that it's
searched
bad.
through every copy of Lower Your Score with Tom Kite for like a year or two, and then I'm just like, it's not worth it. It's a stupid 3DO instructional disc. It's not worth it. If one comes up at a high price, I'll decide if I want it. But because I was trying to like get one for like $10.
Yeah.
Like Lower Your Score with Tom Kite, ironically, it's got it like it's one of the cheapest games on 3DO because who wants it, but also there's a ton of new old stock. And it's funny because like the new old stock, it has the registration card that you could have got the stupid mental messages thing with. I don't even know if I count it, Stefan. I think I maybe count it as like your copy of Tom Kite is incomplete, but Tom Kite, the actual name of the game is Interactive Golf, Lower Your Score with Tom Kite Shot Making. And this disc is called Lower Your Score with Tom Kite Mental Messages, which seems like that it's not like part of shot making. It's a separate thing, which makes me just think it's its own release, not just a disc 4. I think it's its own thing.
If it didn't say disc 4 on the actual disc, I would.
Oh, does it say disc 4 on the disc too?
It says disc 4 on the actual disc.
I think you got to go post the disc to Moby Games because I don't think there's like a picture of the disc on the internet.
Also, like each of the discs, Tyler, do have like a name, right? So like Mental Messages is the name of that disc, right? So disc 2, for instance, just because I'm looking at it, the title is Trouble Shots, Special Shots, Game Around Green, right? Games Around Green. So like each of the discs do have names associated to them. So if this is disc 4, Mental Messages, then your argument falls.
This is a much weirder situation than stadium events. Why don't people talk about mental messages? Who cares about stadium events? Stadium events came out. Obviously, it counts.
Because nobody cares about 3DO.
Johnny, we got another console to talk about.
We sure do. We have lots of them, Tyler. We have so many. But I'm going to take us back into familiar waters. And let's go the Genesis. Let's talk about the Genesis because we get to talk about 2 games on the Genesis. And I think this is pretty easy. If you're looking at just games that 100% count and that people don't write off and say don't count, it's Crusader of Senti, and it's a $1,400 game. And just a reminder, Crusader of Senti is only a cardboard box game. It did not come in a clamshell. Don't listen to people who say that. Cardboard box only. But it's like, yeah, it got expensive. This is a game that was, always kind of expensive, got some hype. I don't know if it's a set killer, but it is expensive. It's, it surpassed Musha. It used to be behind Musha forever, and now it's gone past that. I wonder if that will flip-flop ever.
And it's only got the one style of the it's just the sleeve, right?
Yeah, just the slide box. Yeah. So
good game.
Yeah, it's good. It's got a lot going for it. It's cardboard box, so it's definitely hard to find it nice. I don't think it's a set killer though, because I think if you're getting the Genesis set, this is one of the premier games you want to get. I don't. Yeah. So I think it's just expensive. It's not a set killer. I think people are. I mean, it's not that people don't want to get stadium events, but they're like priced out of it. But like this one, you're like, aha, cool. And I got the Instagram picture and everything. Like this is like, yeah, did it. Like, and it's a good game. And, look, it's the Zelda for Genesis that no one talks about. Like, it just has some it has a different kind of cred than some of these than your Mental Masters or whatever, your Tom Kite game, which no one gives a shit about.
I think it's,
they should. I'm not saying they don't. They definitely should, but you're not going to get that validation from the internet when you post that versus, except for like those 2 weird guys when it counts a lot. VG Collectaholic, I know you're listening. But Crusader of Senti, you're going to get a lot of people like, yeah, cool, Crusader of Senti, Musha, got it. Awesome. And
I think it's
like those 2 games
clearly the least rare game on this list, even though it has a reputation of being rare. Like, it is so not the rarest Sega Genesis game. I think if you search on eBay, there's like 6 complete copies for sale. And not even all of them are like ridiculous buy it now. It's like there's some like in the $1,000 to $1,500 range, which yes is ridiculous for a Sega Genesis game, but what's the year we're living in? I know the hardest game for me to find on Sega Genesis was Aero the Acrobat 2. I can see there are 0 complete in box copies right now. There is 1 manual and they want $400 for it. And you know what? I get it. If Crusader of Senti is at $1,500, yeah. Aero the Acrobat 2 manual, $400. Yeah, force someone to go buy that. You're a jerk for putting it at that, but if we're going to price things based on rarity, yeah.
Yeah, and make sure you get the pins for the Aero the Acrobat games.
What are you talking about?
Out there? There's like little pins that
are they like promo things, or they came with the game.
I don't know, I just know they exist.
Great.
Anyways, let's talk about the more interesting game. It's like that's the expensive one, but I want to talk because, like you said, it's like the example of not actually very rare. I'm not saying it's not. We're not saying it's common, but it's definitely not like super rare. Therefore, it is killing your ability to get this set. It's just the expensive one. Let's talk about Outback Joey though. Does it count? First off.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's talk about what is Outback Joey. Outback Joey is Oh, did you want to go?
No, I just thought we were talking about the Sega Genesis.
Yeah. Cool.
Not the heartbeat. Not the heartbeat.
Heartbeat personal trainer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the Outback Joey is a game for the Heartbeat personal trainer, which is an exercise game that you play on a bike. And the bike, moves when you're pedaling on the bike, moves a little cartoon kangaroo across the levels. And you've got like some other equipment attached to you to play this game. But it's running through the Heartbeat Trainer, which is just a shell on a Genesis, and it is definitely made by Sega, and it is definitely in the Genesis era. But does that count as a Genesis game? I don't know. And if it does, it is the rarest and hardest to find, and also an icky category of game. It's like an exercise game, so no one wants to shell out for that. The type of game kills your interest in it. The rarity, the fact that it only comes boxed with the Heartbeat Trainer also takes away from it. Like these are the things that kill people's drives to, I think, included in the set, and also that it's on this edge case. It does play in a Sega Genesis. You can also take Outback Joey and it will boot in a regular Sega Genesis. So
yeah, you have to plug in the controller, but yes, it will.
Yep. Actually, you can plug it right into a what's it called? A Nomad, and it fires right up.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep. Not that you can play.
So here's the thing. The thing that yes, it says like licensed, but it has licensed by Sega branding on the box. But the thing that like really cinched it for me as to going to the does it count conversation is that the Heartbeat Trainer, like you said, it is a different shell on top of a Genesis, and they didn't even re-sticker the bottom. So if you flip it over on the bottom, it's not called a Heartbeat Personal Trainer. It straight up says fucking Sega Genesis.
Well, because it is a Genesis. It is a Genesis.
Yes, it is a Genesis.
It's a game in a Genesis shell that plays on the Genesis.
Right. Agreed.
So
yeah, it's crazy. They're 100% compatible between each other. What a crazy system that they are.
Because it's the same fucking board. They didn't even replace the bottom. No, it's the same shell.
It is a Genesis. And when they made this game, I guarantee they're like, yeah, we're going to put this on a Genesis. And they're like, great. They weren't selling it. It's like, yeah, we'll make you your own system. Like, who wants that?
Not a single person ever bought Outback Joey and then played it on their Sega Genesis. They played it on their Heartbeat system.
Cool. So, what's the cycling game on RacerMate? Is that not a Nintendo game?
The NES. Yeah.
There was a time many years ago where there was a group of people who just didn't consider RacerMate Challenge 2 an NES game. I don't even remember the reasoning anymore, but it was awesome. Was it because it came with its own system? I don't know. That came with a Nintendo though, right?
Yeah.
Or did it come with the RacerMate system? I don't know. It just came with like a Nintendo with a sticker on it, right?
Yeah, but
you mean like the Heartbeat?
Yeah.
Heartbeat comes with the what does the Heartbeat personal trainer system look like? See, I don't have the system.
It is a Model 1 Genesis with they molded a custom
Ooh,
lid.
They molded a custom thing. Oh, it says Heartbeat personal trainer on it. Oh.
Yeah, so
yes, but the board inside, the guts, it is a Genesis. It's not a different thing. It's a Genesis. It's not a Genesis.
The labeling on the bottom, like patent information, etc., is from the Genesis Model 1. So
is it JVC XI a Genesis or is it a JVC XI?
Check this out. If you take a body mold of a Ferrari and you put it on a Ferrero, it is not a fucking Ferrari. It's still a forever.
Outback
it
Joey
is that.
at the bottom. Every Genesis says 4-play on Sega Genesis. It says 4-play on the Heartbeat system.
It's weird because you play it on a Genesis. That's the weird part. The weird part is you play it on a Genesis.
I can't believe they made like their own custom mold for it. Why would they waste their time?
Because because it was a fitness system, and they wanted to get, they wanted to brand it like, hey, this is fitness. And there's also like the golf game, which is a Genesis game, which had a Heartbeat Trainer version.
Whoa. Okay, hold on. I'm on the Sega Retro article. This changes everything, I think. What's the Heartbeat Catalyst? No, I think this is in your favor. Is the Heartbeat Catalyst the bike? Yes, the Heartbeat Catalyst is the bike. I haven't looked at the source for this yet. I'm sure it's fine. For buyers who already had a Sega Mega Drive, the Catalyst hardware was a separate purchase, available for $199, still including Outback Joey.
Oh, that's
meaning you could buy the bike and Outback Joey without the system.
It was but that's for the Mega Drive.
What, was this only in Europe? That would be so disappointing.
Who knows?
I'm going to the Wayback Machine.
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Maybe we've solved the mystery of square ends versus rounded ends on the label.
Ooh.
If you don't know, there was some dispute on whether Outback Joey cartridges, because the label has either squared off ends or round ends, and somebody said the squared off end was the real one and the rounded ones were fake, even though two people definitely owned that system in a box where that
It wasn't
came
someone,
out of.
it was fucking John Hancock.
Well, no, he didn't own the system. You and I own the system that those came out of it. He told us that ours were fakes.
Were fake.
They've gotten very good.
Yeah.
I'm like, I bought this before anyone was, like, the only place you could find info on Outback Joey was Digit Press back in the day. From the guy who went looking for it is the guy who I bought it from. So I don't think it was fake, but whatever.
Yeah, there's also a crazy board revision for this game. Just since we're talking about it, and I think it's interesting, I'm going to talk about it. The version with the square edges of the labels, like Johnny's talking about. Also, if you look at the board inside, and I have a video about it online. If you Google that. That's how annoyed
Stefan was with John. Hancock.
I was so mad. But the board actually is a prototype board. Like they started the first production copies of Outback Joey, the actual cartridge. They used a prototype board with like flash EPROMs on it, and that was another kind of like point of conversation where like, oh, it's fake. These are flash EPROMs. It's like, no, this is like a proper Genesis prototype board. Because they essentially ran through what we think happened is they ran through the stock that they had of prototype boards from development, because this was such a fucking like seat of their pants project that they just, to save money, they just used the boards they had available and then switched to production boards. Yeah. So there's some weird shit around Outback Joey.
Tyler, anything else you want to get in on Outback Joey? Because we've been talking about this forever. We should be through way more systems at this point.
Outback Joey's, I'm going to say, not a set killer. You know what's a set killer on Sega Genesis? Electronic book decoder for the JVC XI, which there's like one picture of ever. Some kind of ebook reader. I have no idea what it is.
That's like a does it count, does it exist? Let's go to the next one, because this is like the next big one that everyone counts off their list. This is one of those ones that it's not the same as Stadium Events, but it's Magical Chase for the TurboGrafx. I don't think people write it off the same way that they do Stadium Events. I think TurboGrafx collectors are just a little more honest with themselves, and they just say, man, I'd love Magical Chase, but it's just too expensive, and I'm never going to be able to buy that because it's so much more expensive than every other game. It's the grail of that system, and collectors like it, and it's a good game, but they're like, it's just, it's too hard to get, and it's too expensive when you can get it, especially complete in box, or complete in case, and then also complete in box. So, yeah, Magical Chase, $14,000. Is it a set killer? I think it stops Turbo. I think it is because it's expensive, because I genuinely think it stops Turbo collectors from completing sets.
All right.
Interesting thing about Turbo, though, I think, is that community in particular seems to be one of the more, and I think Saturn is part of this up there too, as far as people who are okay with crossing regions. Like I find with Turbo collectors the way more than any other set, people being willing to be like, no, I'll just go get the Japanese copy of like whatever game. Like be it Air Zonk or be it Magical Chase or be it whatever. There seems to be probably likely, I would assume, because there's so many more games in that library that you just don't need English for to play, because there's such a glut of shooters on that system. But it is interesting to me that like I see a lot of Turbo sets that have a Japanese Magical Chase in there, and they're just fine with it.
Okay. Yeah. Tyler, what are your thoughts? I'm standing by my reasoning.
I'm going to call it a set killer, Johnny, because there's 96 TurboGrafx games, hue cards.
Something like that.
There are people who collect systems like Wii U or Master System just because they're small sets, so they would be relatively easy to collect. And I think there would be more TurboGrafx collectors if there wasn't the Magical Chase on that system, just because it is such a small set. So just because of that, I think it is a set killer. I think there are people who don't collect TurboGrafx just because the mountain.
It's not a set waiter or whatever the fuck you made up to disparage 3DO collecting.
Yeah, a set holder.
No, because if you
whatever.
collect 3DO, you're weird. Yeah, because you go into 3DO, you know you're going in with like an, oh man, I'm going to have to find all these stupid educational discs and crap.
All right, I'm going to verify Magical Chase on our list in orange.
Verified
set killer. Verified set killer. Magical Chase.
I noticed you didn't highlight RCA Studio 2 Bingo, Johnny.
Here, verified set killer. I'll take your word on it. All right. Okay. So,
hey,
do you have more you want to add on that? Yeah.
No, I did. If we're moving on, I wanted to bring something up that I noticed about this list.
Sure.
And I would imagine that the reason that it's not here is because there are of three of us, none of us really collect the set, but also that there's a crushing amount of set killers, and that would be the Neo Geo.
Yeah, that's some bias on my part. I never think of the Neo Geo because when I do, I get my feelings hurt.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention it because there's like multiple $10,000 plus games on that console, that are incredibly rare.
Yeah. I don't have data and I didn't do any research on that. I mean, we have lots of, like, again, we could get into a part 2. So like we can put Neo Geo on this list and then come back to that.
I just wanted to bring it up because I know people listening will bring it up. So
yeah.
I think so. Going back to reasons that things are set killers, I think like literally every single reason we have for what kills a set can apply to Neo Geo because they are rare, they're expensive, the high-end stuff is bootlegged, like you have to send your Neo Geo cards to like specialists to authenticate them. They're not like original releases. For the price of an AES game, you could buy a cheaper MVS cabinet with the game, which is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
And no one has nostalgia for it, because who the fuck had a Neo Geo? And it only has like 2 main genres, because they're all arcade games. Like, everything Neo Geo has is going against it, unless you're like the Neo Geo SNK fighter guy who had a Neo Geo AES growing up.
Yeah.
I agree.
We could move on from it. I just wanted to bring it up because it was not on the list at all.
Yeah. So I'm going back to my bread and butter here real quick. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to talk about Super Nintendo just for saying the 16-bit era here. Let's talk about Super Nintendo real quick. Games are getting very expensive, but one game has survived. King of the Hype Train, this had Little Samson-esque hype around it at one point that, it was like, oh, it's a Blockbuster exclusive, and people just kept talking about it. And I don't know if it is for sure, if we like really got into whether it was a Blockbuster exclusive, but that's Hagane, however you want to say it.
Hagany.
It's there. Yeah, Hagany. Let's get really bad at pronouncing things.
That's the Irish pronunciation.
Yeah.
That I've just made up.
Yeah. So this game, it started out people being upset that it was like $200 complete, $300 complete, $500, $1,000, $2,000, and now we're seeing complete copies go for upwards of $5,000. The game is always in terrible condition, it seems like. So to find a nice one, if you're like a condition enthusiast, very hard to get this nice. And that's all three components. The card is always bad, but a lot of times you see rental stickers on the cartridges and the manuals. So yeah, it's a tough one, but is it a set killer or is it just expensive?
Are you telling me Hagane is the most expensive, like, regular Super Nintendo game?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's why it eclipsed Mountain Bike Rally Exertainment. Not on here anymore. Gone.
What?
Used to be number one. And then the competition cards, which we'll get to in a second.
It's more expensive than like Aero Fighters and all. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because
Aero Fighters,
you go back,
maybe a nice
Those
Aero
two
Fighters
were like
poster.
dueling for a long time.
You go back like 15 years, Hagane is just like an uncommon game. And now it's
Yeah.
the top game? That's so crazy.
I understand, and I am confused. So I thought it was interesting to bring it up. So yeah, you'll have people asking just as much for like Aero Fighters, but if you look at solds, yeah, it's Hagane. And I think Aero Fighters does not have any kind of hype around it anymore. There's no excitement. Like at one point, what's it called? Three Ninjas Kick Back was a big game on the list. And then Pocky and Rocky 2. Yeah, Pocky and Rocky 2 got very expensive.
Remember when Ninja Gaiden Trilogy was like the fucking shit?
Yeah, back in 2005. Yeah, so weirdly, Hagane just kind of took that.
This is so weird because if you look at the most expensive games on every console, I feel like the opinions, like a lot of them are kind of hype trains that have continued, even if they aren't the rarest or the best game or whatever. Like Crusader Ascenti, perfect example. If that is the most expensive, like kind of regular Sega Genesis game, it has always been held in a high regard as like a hard to find game, as a game that everyone wants in their Sega Genesis collection. And thinking about the Super Nintendo, like that top game like shifts over time. Like Hagane is a huge shift because that was not the game 10, 15 years ago. Like I can't believe, is it really like James and Mike Monday that actually brought this game to prominence and now it's the top game?
Well, that's why I'm saying, remember how Little Samson was just an uncommon game for a while, and then the hype train just kept building, and now it just like got to a point where it's a very expensive, super expensive game. I mean, not that we get to talk about that as a set killer because stadium events exist, but Little Samson, like it was one of those games that went from like, okay, like I want this game, it's pretty good, it's got some status, to wow, this is a super expensive game on this system. Hagane did the same thing. And if you're looking at extra Speed Racer Mountain Bike Rally Exertainment cart, that thing will go for like $1,600 to like $2,000. Like completes I haven't really seen, or sealed. There's not really. Some people are asking like $10,000, but they were selling like pretty regularly in the $2,500 to $3,000 range. So even if this game did its best and got to $4,000 or $5,000, Hagane is still besting that. Which is crazy.
Weird.
Look, it's hard for me to call it a set killer only because the availability, right? It's available. There's like 11 copies on fucking eBay right now.
Complete, really?
Less complete, but like that's still like a handful of them.
Okay.
I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I mean, I'm going to say it's not a set killer because so many of the top games that we talk about are like, oh shit, here comes stadium events, my life is over. But when you think of Super Nintendo, like very easily at the top, like Hagane, Aero Fighters, Exertainment, Double Pack, like all those are in like the same conversation, and there's not really one game that I would say is what kills it.
There are 8 complete copies up on eBay right now. 2 of them are like, or 3 of them are like bananas expensive, but like, but they're there. So like, I don't know. Availability factors in heavily for me when I think about set killers.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I think I just thought Hagane was an interesting point because it became the most expensive game, at least for now. That may change over time, but it came out of nothingness into this. It's the most aspirational story for the value of a game. So, not a set killer. Let's talk about real set killers, and does it count? Competition cards. Also, Hagane sold more than the Star Fox competition card does regularly, which is crazy to me.
That is crazy.
So like not even close, really. Still very expensive. Not to undermine that, it still sells for like $2,000 to $3,000. But DK, what the hell happened with DK competition? Do these competition cards count? And what is going on with the price of DK competition?
I think with the competition cards, I think for Super Nintendo anyway, that to me had been the most like clear cut version of the story going, hey, does this count? And then the community sort of resoundingly said no. Usually boiling down to that the retail release argument, right? That they were never released. I own that game and I like it, and I'm a prime component of making that argument. That no effing way. It was not like, and educating people on the difference between a retail release and the legalities that have to happen for something to be sold retail versus a company selling a promotional item, which is different because it has to go through back then ESRB. It goes through a process. It gets a SKU, and that's why this game doesn't have a box or any of that stuff. Yes, I understand it has this Blockbuster like folding cart, but that or like Blockbuster case, but that's not the same thing. It didn't have to come with the health and safety manuals. All of that is required for an actual retail release that goes through a factory production for retail release. Is this a Super Nintendo game that exists? Yes, but if you're talking about the retail set of Super Nintendo games, which we often do, and that's why, like, say, Max doesn't count, which is a combat, multi-arcade combat simulation or whatever it is. Which it was an army trainer, basically.
Yeah. So why that doesn't count, these don't count for the same reason, even though this is like a premier property. It's a Donkey Kong game on Nintendo.
Yeah, and I think my point really was that, like, of the arguments where, like, you have the community, like, fighting back and forth or, like, doing mental gymnastics to, like, explain something away, the competition cards for the Super Nintendo, for whatever reason, just the argument seemed to be pretty simple, where we just kind of collectively went, do these count? And we all kind of went, no, probably not, and sort of moved on, right? Like, I see very little, even historically, like back in the day, very little proponents of saying, like, unless they were just trying to be shitty.
I mean, I had some real fights about this one, and people still fight me. Yeah, for
that's
sure.
Interesting. Well, they're wrong, so that's.
I also agree that they're wrong, but also I've stated out my point and I have my biases. But does that mean I don't think it's cool? No, I think it's very cool. Historically
important, absolutely, 100%. Not going to argue that. But and for those reasons, I own them too, right? I loved I always love a good story, right? That's always been very forefront in my collecting, regardless of what it was I was collecting. But so yeah, I love this. I love the story. Historically important, absolutely. Part of the set, no fucking way.
Yeah. So I'm gonna brand this as doesn't count and not a set killer. Tyler, any objections?
Nope. I'm same thing. I mean, I think I've seen more people kind of object and say that it is part of the set, but I don't like the idea of retail sets. I just think they aren't part of the set because they were sold used, and it's like you can't. That doesn't count. Come on.
Also that.
If you couldn't buy it new, then what was it? So let's go to another like niche case, which is weird, and we're not going to really talk about prices on this too much. But Game Boy. So Game Boy has 3 games I want to talk about: Metal Masters, Amazing Tater, and Spud's Adventure. So these games are all priced X, question mark when they come up, but they're just never available. I think Amazing Tater and Spud's Adventure show up more. Those are like, from the same series. They Atlas games. People know them. Those are always the premier ones. But Metal Masters, I think, is the sneaky one, which lots of people get stuck on. And there's lots of just stuff in Game Boy that, especially if you're going complete in box, and like we'll limit this to a complete in box argument, they just don't show up. The boxes don't show up. Maybe the manual doesn't show up. They're hard to obtain. Metal Masters is always the sneaky one that people are telling me, yeah, that was one of the last ones I ever got. So
are you serious? Like, so I've literally never heard this. Like
really?
Metal Masters being among the top 3 hardest to get Game Boy games.
Yeah, like complete in box, mind you.
Yeah, complete and like what? Who's paying? Are people paying like thousands of dollars for complete Metal Masters?
I believe they have, yeah. But
Like, if you were to ask me to put a third game with the potato games, I would put
go.
like F1 pole position, and you're telling me that's
F1
like no problem compared to Metal Masters?
F1, it's F1 pole position 1 or 2. So 2, right?
There's only one. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, I mean, Metal Masters, a little different now because, and the reason I bring it up is because it got a limited run release also, which is another reason I wanted to stick it in there. But if you look for Metal Masters, it's never available. So even if it wasn't always expensive, good luck finding a Metal Masters.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
well,
the last one sold for $2,000.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is that really more than F1 pole position still?
I mean, F1 pole position is another good one to bring up. I didn't bring that up just because I thought Metal Masters having a limited run release now, and whether people are just going to put that into as their placeholder.
Literally,
game
no one is going to do that.
Well, because if you're in that deep, why would you get this? But but all these people went and bought this Metal Masters. Why would you buy this if you could just literally go get the cart for this game? Why?
If you bought limited run games Metal Masters, so I didn't realize how rare Metal Masters boxes were, but if you bought limited run games Metal Masters, please write into the show and tell us what you were thinking. and you know what? If the answer is that you just buy every Game Boy game or you just buy every Nintendo game, perfectly fine answer. But any other answer, I need to know what's going on.
Yeah,
wow,
what happened?
That $2,000 sale was like the other day too.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not kidding. Yeah, I've had multiple people tell me about Metal Masters.
Huh.
Because it's literally been on my, and if you ask, I think Joan Bone, I think he'll tell you Metal Masters is one that he took a while to get as one of the people. I think he said that publicly on Instagram, so I don't mind using his name here.
Ooh, I really like the art too.
All right,
yeah,
I'm going
cool.
to
if you
make
like
a
mechs,
ruling
which
here.
Suck.
Metal Masters and the potato games are not even close to set killers. Because if you are so broken in the brain that you're going for a complete in box Game Boy set, which is 500 games, 500 games that are like way more throw outable and not available as say like NES or Super Nintendo, there's no single game you're going to stop at. This is just like you are buckling down for a multi-year pursuit at that point.
Yeah, well, and I think Game Boy collectors are used to that. So I think there's some conditioning in there that if you are buying a Game Boy set and you're going complete in box, you're not expecting to do it quickly. You're not expecting to get it done in a year or maybe even 2 years. You're in for the long haul.
Yep. Didn't an amazing wasn't there there was like a really crazy lot of Game Boy games on eBay. Yeah, an amazing tater. Not
They've
even like
sold
100% complete. Like it's missing the inserts. I'm sure those inserts aren't like super rare. Just cart insert box, $10,400.
Yep, super expensive games.
Crazy.
But there's also repros of that kind of all over. So
this was like a person who clearly had like all like the sumo whatever game and
yeah,
they had everything. It was awesome. Of course,
it was yeah. Well, those Game Boy that guy's guy. I want to say guy. I think it's American Girl.
Yeah.
All of those auctions, like Darkman and stuff, they had all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think those auctions got like noticed by a large swath of people, and it was especially like, it wasn't just like 1 or 2 games they had. They had so many games out that then you start seeing what else they have, and that just builds interest.
Oh yeah, yeah. So this is exactly that thing. Yeah, if you want to sell some rare games, man, you just sell 20 games at a time and just like post like, hey, you want to see this in a Facebook group? And everything's gonna sell for double the going rate.
Yeah, you just start publicizing your own games. People get interested. They start posting on Facebook and social media. Yeah, never underestimate the posting in quantity if you can for rare games or just desirable games. Anyways, Tyler, why don't you haven't picked a system in a minute that you want to talk about. Well, you go ahead and go to one.
Pick Daytona.
Are people really going to stop collecting Saturn because of Daytona? Daytona Netlink 35.
I did.
I
did that.
I
Can
will
you
say
find
this.
it?
What?
No, you can't fucking find it.
Well, VG Collectaholic has like a mint sealed one, like 9.8.
Yeah, he's got the best.
Come on.
Yeah,
You guys
How
don't
many
have
times
Daytona.
hold
We're
on,
using
many-
that dude as
Super
the gold
easy.
standard.
Super easy to get. He
Okay.
seems to have all the set killers. Weird.
Yeah, like let's not disparage him. Okay, VJ Collectaholic is great. And
Do
I
not
think he
call him
probably-
VGA Collectaholic.
Yeah.
That is-
Why not?
That's the funniest disparaging nickname.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, he's
he
got
knows
such
he's
an
not being
amazing collection.
disparaged, and he knows I love his collection.
Yeah, he's got such an amazing collection. Like, if you want to go ahead.
I was just saying we can't use him as like the bar because it's too. He would be setting that bar too high.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right,
he has more sets than me, and I have what you would consider a lot of complete sets, and I think he's got more complete sets than me.
Yeah.
Pretty sure, or we're very close. He has a ridiculous collection. He owns more games than I do, and I am plus 10,000. So there you go.
Okay, guys, Sega Saturn's got like 250 games. There was a mail order release of Daytona USA. There are 4 ports of Daytona USA on the Saturn. One of them only came out in Japan. All of them have different handling, slightly different. It's ridiculous. And none of them are like the arcade. They tried to make it more like it's. I fucking hate Saturn arcade ports. Let me tell you.
Not what we're talking about, Tyler.
As the biggest Daytona fan on the show. Okay, Daytona USA Champion Circuit Edition, Netlink Edition. Does it have edition in it twice?
Yes. Well, it says it's CCE Netlink Edition.
Oh, ridiculous.
So, but that E does stand for edition.
All right, so it is basically Champion Circuit Edition Netlink. They added, there's some minor crap. I don't remember what they added, but the big thing they added was
only because I'm reading. Only because I'm staring at it right now. But
Okay.
it's 3 extra cars and was optimized for 2-player online support.
online. Man, I don't remember. I don't know anything about Netlink.
That's why
Yes.
the word Netlink
Okay.
is in there, Tyler.
Okay, and it was what was a mail order from? You probably have it up in front of you. What was where'd you mail order from?
That did not actually that is not part of what I'm looking at right now.
SegaParts.com. You mail ordered it. Oh no, you could mail order it, or you could buy it from Sega-Parts.com.
Sega-Parts.com. That was that was the
Everyone
place
got
to
it
be.
from there.
Everybody.
So I remember, this was in the late 90s, I guess, and I remember going back
after the discontinuation of the console. By the way,
yeah, I remember going back through like old forums and like I don't maybe Usenet, but people knew this was a cool mail order thing like when it came out. Which is probably why one was kept sealed for VG Collectaholic there. But like, yeah, people knew this was going to be rare and cool. And I don't think it's a set killer. I guess it is because Stefan stopped collecting Saturn at this point.
I did. I 100% did.
But I guess
It's
the
hard
thing that
to-
would bring me around is that it's so easy to slice it out because it is just Daytona USA Champion Circuit Edition. And you could just say, this is just like the special edition of that.
Well, fucking stadium events is just world-class track meet.
Yeah, I agree. I took World Class Track Meet off my list a long time ago, but I'm talking about popular consensus.
So you're not. So I'm going to say it's a set killer, not just because of the price, which is something that pushes people away. Even though I think Saturn people are used to paying kind of money for games, so the price. I think availability, and like I had this thing where I was like kind of going to be done with Saturn until I found one at a really good price. I was like, oh my God. And that kind of re-energized me. I was like having a big collecting lull. And then I found that and was like super pumped to get it. And this is back in, I don't know. I wrote a blog. There's a date on a blog when I wrote it. Back in the days of blogging, when I did such a thing. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's genuinely hard to find. And
yeah, so
what
4
are you gonna
copies.
do?
Sorry, 4 copies have sold over that. I'm just looking at price charting but 4 copies have been tracked since the pandemic, essentially since 2020, and it's 3,500, 1,750, 4,000, and 5,000 for complete copies. So it's expensive.
Yeah.
All right. So if price charting tracked 4 of them, so there were probably like at least 25 sales, and 21 of those were missed.
Well, I'm going to say right now on eBay, if you checked eBay sold, you would only find 1.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what sold tracks anymore. Is it like 6 months it tracks or 3 months now?
eBay it's 3 months, and if
bad.
you have like a special seller account, you can go back 6 months.
Okay. It's so bad. I hate that. So I don't know. I think it's pretty edge case. It is expensive. It is hard to find. But as you were saying, people do find ways to cut it out of the set. And well, do you care? Especially because of the Netlink thing. If you don't care about playing on Netlink, what does it actually do for you? Can you play? I don't even know if you can play it without it being linked to the internet. I'm sure you can, but I've never verified it.
So look, n=1 for sure, but I just wanted to bring it up because it literally killed my set. So if you are
and you
saying,
own stadium events.
So if we're saying, is it a set killer? Does it kill people's sets?
All right.
n=1. It killed my set.
Okay.
Verified. I highlighted the wrong one. I highlighted definitely not a set killer. So the other one I had on our list for Saturn, because it gets brought up a lot, but it is not a set killer. It's just an expensive game. And it's Panzer Dragoon Saga. And it was like $1,300. You can find it. It's very common.
If you're quitting over that.
So if people will tell me this is a grail or a set killer, I disagree.
I don't think if people who buy Panzer Dragoon Saga collecting Saturn sets, I feel like people buy 5 Saturn games, and Panzer Dragoon Saga is going to be one of those 5 Saturn games.
I think if you're buying Saturn games, you're definitely buying Panzer Dragoon, so it doesn't really matter.
You're in for a penny, in for a pound on Saturn, right? Like if you're gonna give up on a set over Panzer Dragoon Saga, maybe set collecting is not for you.
Yeah, I would. Me and Johnny kind of maybe don't think Panzer Dragoon Saga is the best RPG ever, but like, don't buy a Sega Saturn and buy the $25 games because there's no reason to own a Sega Saturn at that point. You're just gonna waste $200 on essentially nothing of value.
The good stuff is all expensive, so you might as well just start spending that money.
Tell me how Blackfire is a hidden gem. I'll go play it. I'm sure it's great.
Let's see. So, do we have anything else on Saturn, or can we move on to Sega CD? Its little brother.
Is its little brother? All right.
I don't know. I just said that. I mean, it's a Sega CD system. So, I only want to talk about this for one reason, and we all know what it is. And we brought up a Whatnot sale earlier, but this thing was bonkers. Like Kui Flying Squadron and Kui. 35. Yeah, $3,500 for this game, guys.
That's not a crazy Whatnot sale.
Oh no, what was the Whatnot one?
No, that was the Whatnot price, but that's like what it goes for. It goes for $3,000 or $4,000. It just goes for
$4,000. Yeah. Oh my god, there's sold on eBay for $4,000.
One sold about a year ago, I remember, for $4,000 sealed on Heritage Auctions, and I thought the sale was so funny. This was like when I was making Retro Gem Miner videos. I thought the sale was so funny because that's the complete in box price for KO, essentially. Like, there was zero premium for it sealed on Heritage Auctions.
Yeah, that seller lost money by putting it on Heritage.
The seller was mad, I remember him responding.
Oh, the seller was mad at you for the video?
No, he wasn't mad at me, but he was really disappointed in the sale. I'm like, dude, no, like, you're selling into a market no one knows what KO Flying Squadron is.
Yeah, you picked the wrong place.
I mean, if you're going to do anything, like, wait like 5 years for people to maybe care about rare stuff or something.
Yeah.
Pretty funny, though. Anyways, yeah, so I guess this game, I don't think it's a set killer. I think this is I think this is a game that people just go after. And I don't think it's necessarily set collectors that go after it, but there are people who just love this game because it's a shmup. So people are going for this game. They're buying it because that's what they collect.
Are you serious? I think you're out of your mind. I think everyone needs KO for their set. I think people buy Snatcher because Snatcher is like one of those games. Like, if I buy some Sega CD games, I'm going to have to get Snatcher.
I don't think it's one of those games that, like, in your set you're like, well, I have to buy that to have the set. I think there are a bunch of people who just like this game and are going after it, and it's got some cred. So it's not a set killer to me. It's a game that people are out there buying anyways, like, regardless of whether they're collecting a set.
All right. See, I can only make assumptions. I'm going to need you to find me one person who has bought KO Flying Squadron who doesn't care about the Sega CD set.
What's his name? Hold on. I will pull up my Instagram. He collects shmups.
Are they only collecting shooters? Because then they're just getting it for, like, their shooter set. No one is like, oh yeah, KO Flying Squadron. That seems like a game I want to spend $3,000 to play.
I mean, you say that, but who are all these people who are spending that much money on it regularly?
Sega CD collectors is what I would assume.
Okay.
Because
Okay,
I
we
got
can just.
Snatcher. Like Snatcher I bought for $500 like a long time ago, back when like that was one of probably the most expensive games ever, but I got it and then I played it because I know Snatcher's like this awesome Hideo Kojima thing. I don't think KO has that reputation. But
I mean,
maybe
and
tell
just
me if you're
so you
buying
guys-
KO and you don't care about it in terms of a set collecting.
Yeah,
thing as well.
I'm curious. We disagree. So are you saying? Because I'm saying it's not a set killer. Are you saying it is a set killer?
I don't think it's a set killer. It's
Okay.
so weird. Like it is objectively ridiculously expensive, but like also like.
I mean, on a
what's-
system that
what's
has
Snatcher
expensive games,
worth now?
$1,200 or less.
Wait, what was that?
I'm seeing $1,200 or less. I'm seeing one sold for $900. We have $1,100 or best offer, $1,150.
Are you talking about
$1,200.
Snatcher?
Yeah, Snatchers. These are completed
yeah. I mean,
sales,
Snatcher's
and
definitely way
lots of
more
them.
common, but I think it's the more interesting game to own for in everything except for pure rarity.
I'm just saying, in the world of expensive Sega CD games, Snatcher being the premier, like, expensive Sega CD game.
Oh yeah, I mean it never
Koei
was.
blows it out of the water by 3.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm sure like Space Adventure on Sega CD is worth more than Snatcher.
I don't know if it is, because I don't know if people care about Space Adventure.
You are 100% right. Who is collecting? Damn, there are so many Space Adventures up for
It's
sale
so hard
right
to
now.
find. It was
It
so
was
hard
so
to find.
hard for me to find a
So
Space
hard.
Adventure. There's like 9 of them.
I found it at a weird convention in Vegas. I was so happy when I found it.
Man, like is it just set collecting is dead, Johnny?
Yes, that
But
collecting
it's
is
not
dead.
because people are paying money for like the ridiculous stuff. See, this is
I think-
that's really hard because there are going back to the types of collectors episode. There are people who will only want the quote unquote best stuff, like the hyped and the top set stuff. And for Sega CD, that's KO, and that pushes stuff like KO up. And even though Space Adventure is, I don't know, top 5 in terms of Sega CD rarities, like it is nowhere near on the level because it's not the top 1.
I mean, it top 5. It's probably top 3. Like, it was so hard
Yeah.
for me to find that game.
Yeah.
And that was like looking on eBay for a long time. And like Snatcher is just there every day. So that's not the rarest game. I mean, yeah,
And
like Radical Rex
with the sticker, like there's
Yeah.
none on eBay and none in solds right now. There is no like actually complete Radical Rex.
And then there's like NFL Trivia, which was like a dumb one. Yeah, there's one sold Radical Rex back last week for $430.
So just because we don't explain things sometimes, Radical Rex, the front of the jewel case has a sticker on it, and because Sega CD games are like prone to breakage, that if you don't have that sticker, is your game really complete? Because
Yeah, not only is it prone to breakage, it's prone to people swapping cases. So that means Radical Rex stickers just went in the garbage.
Johnny, this $430 Radical Rex,
No
it
sticker.
clearly had the sticker and someone peeled it off.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Ugh.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, some sad news right there. Does it count if it's got the residue? It's the correct
You
case.
know it's the original jewel case.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Tough choices there. Now, don't want to be that collector. Anyways, I'm not gonna certify Koei. Anyone else?
All right,
Is
KO.
anyone else?
KO.
Koei?
K-E-I-S-K.
Anyone? Kiwi?
Oh, Koei.
Koei?
Koey. The original Koei Microcomputer Group. Actually, before it was
It's-
called Koei, it was Koei Microcomputers.
It's
If you want to talk with
Koei.
me and Tiger Wolf about the history of Koei, I'm super
No, we
interested in
don't.
it right now.
We don't want to talk about that history right now, actually.
So, turn your keys, gentlemen. Certified or not certified? I'm not turning my key.
No.
No.
That's for you.
Because if
peaceful,
you're
you know what I'm
collecting
talking
Sega
about.
CD, all you have to do, all you're trying to do is just burn thousands of dollars anyway. Because what would you be doing collecting Sega CD otherwise?
Okay.
'Cause-
Stefan, would you like to pick a set to discuss whether we're certifying it or not?
I was actually going back to, and we can not talk about this if you don't want, but I just was poking around on eBay, looking at like the trajectory of fucking Earthbound, and like going, is that gonna become a set killer? Because I'm staring at a $4,000 sale in the face, and I'm just like, holy crap! That's like a 400% markup from like the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, see, I mean, I think it's interesting to track games that have exploded, and like Hagane could be on there. And Earthbound is interesting because of its spikes and dips, but not a set killer because people want Earthbound and they'll go for it. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It's not
that's
stopping
right.
anybody. It would be my
Which is
opinion.
also, I think, is the poster child, and again, off topic, but the poster child for the argument, I just think it's funny that there was that argument when it started hitting all like the virtual consoles and on the minis, and they're putting Earthbound on fucking everything now. And
I mean, it's coming
everyone's
back
like, oh
out.
my God, the value, it's going to tank the value. And then it's like a $4,000 sale this month.
Yeah,
Jesus
I mean,
Christ.
it did drop the value of the game for a little while, but not forever.
Not forever.
You know, I think it brings up a good point. If people are willing to buy the game at its market price and they're not trying to go for the set, I think that by definition means it can't be a set killer. Because
Yeah,
if
I
someone's
agree.
buying KO Flying Squadron just for like its shoot 'em up value, then it's not killing anyone's set because that means it's worth $4,000 to someone outside of just checking a checkbox.
I agree, and that was my argument.
Great. Great. Stefan,
We're all
talk about
saying
something
the same
else.
thing.
Yeah.
I'm actually interested. I know there's not a price here, and I'm pretty sure you put it in here, Johnny. But I'm interested to have you talk about it because I have no knowledge of this game nor the Game Gear set really. But Rise of the Robots surprised me being on this list.
So Rise of the Robots is an interesting one, and for Game Gear, this is like long in the lore, and I don't think it is the rarest game at all on the Game Gear, but I think it's one of these games that is rare and doesn't show up. And when it does show up, you know, it can be $500, it could be $1,000, it could be $2,000. So it's just very obscure. It's hard to talk about Game Gear games, especially like we have to like kind of put an asterisk on all this. When you talk about this, it's in box. So especially finding a nice one, you can see like very high sales prices, but it just doesn't come up. So for a long time, Rise of the Robots was one of those games that people talked about like, oh, it just doesn't exist back in the olden days. I don't know if it's still like that, but yeah, it was just one of these ones where it wasn't killing your set necessarily even because it was too expensive. You're just like, I can't find it. And there's lots of games like that. People have to search for a long time. Like CJ the Elephant was one that I was always looking for and never got around to buying it. And then like when it would come up, it'd be $300 and I didn't want to spend that money. But Rise of the Robots is much like that, where you're just like, I need a complete in box one. It's never coming up. Oh, here's a manual. Like the last one sold back in February and it sold for $1,200. So it's just one of these games. And I'm using it kind of as a placeholder for other Game Gear games of this ilk that, you know, when you're buying these complete in box, it just doesn't show up. And I think it was the most expensive sale in the last eBay cycle anyways, of most expensive Game Gear games. So, but that happens a lot on Game Gear because there's games like Game Boy where they just don't show up forever. So like a Metal Masters, it's just like, you're like, okay, I found the cart, but what am I doing about this box? Am I ever going to find it? Am I ever going to find this stupid thing? And then, I mean, it's the Game Gear, so hopefully you only have like 5 other people who care about it, but you might have some competition, you know, to get that game. So that's Rise of the Robots.
I just didn't because that game is also on like so many different consoles. It struck me odd that it was on that list. Interesting. I want to pick again because I can, and I'm gonna. I want to talk about Xbox, and I want someone to, because I already have a POV on this, so I want someone to convince me that Steel Battalion is a set killer because I don't believe it is. Who put that on there?
I put it on there because I wanted to have the discussion. You and Tyler can begin your talk on it.
Look, I think Steel Battalion. It's sort of it's physically large. Okay, so for people who don't know, Steel Battalion is a mech game, so one of Johnny's favorite game genres, by the way. But what makes it unique is that it is a very tactical game in that like there's just like a fuckload of buttons, and so to accommodate that, it ships with a custom gigantic throttle joystick combo controller that's put together as like 3 feet 3 feet wide. Yeah, it's big. But also like I feel like every single live show that I'm at, there's at least one or two that I see. So like from an availability standpoint, I think they're out there because they're big. But then also people don't, necessarily want them because they're big. So yeah, that's my POV. I think $400 sounds about right. For what they're going for, but
between 4 and 6, I mean, as low
which
as
is
3
more
unconditional.
it's on the higher end for again in relativity to the rest of the set.
I mean, I think it's the most
fairly
expensive Xbox game for the set, like individual game. That isn't like that isn't like NBA Ballers or something. One of these weird games, like just generic set.
Yeah. I want to say, I mean, Outrun is also on this list, and I think
Outrun is a little bit less. I know because I checked the price date on it.
Interesting. But anyway, but yeah, again, from an availability standpoint, they're out there. So that's my take on that. There's also, fun fact, a controller variant of this. One has is it blue buttons and green buttons?
Yep, green
Tyler?
buttons came first.
Yeah. Tyler and I love to bring up Steel Battalion. It's his favorite.
And I don't think there's not a price premium, right? On either of those?
I don't think
it's
so.
Just,
no.
Yeah.
I don't. Most people don't know. So,
I mean, it's
Anyway,
Xbox. You'd
that's
want the
my
green
take.
one, I think, and I think there's more green ones too. Yeah, I think the Steel Battalion is just listed here because it was the most expensive Xbox game. It's been a few years since I finished my Xbox set. I am, as someone who collects a lot of video games from a lot of different consoles and a lot of different eras, I am firmly of the belief there are no rare Xbox games, which is maybe a little strange because every console has like that one weird game that's hard to get. If you're not counting like limited editions and demos and betas and things like that, there's basically no rare Xbox games. All of them are very attainable if you're gonna specifically go after them.
Yeah, I think the only thing that comes to mind that was like legitimately difficult for me to find was that what's that collector's edition with the like 3D looking cover? It's a racing game. It's a God, what the fuck is it? I gave one to Gabo.
Speed?
What the fuck?
Not Outrun.
No, it's a racing game that's got like a 3D like a vac form cover on it, and it's like in a box. And it's a collector's edition, and that was difficult to find.
Yeah, but that's a collector's edition.
Yeah.
So I did put this Xbox Platinum Hits NBA Ballers here, not because it's particularly a set killer, but because it's sort of one of these games that came out of nowhere and killed people's sets before they knew it existed. So NBA Ballers Platinum Hits, when was it discovered? Maybe a couple years ago at this point, 3 years ago. Time has no meaning anymore, so it's hard to track. But like there have been a small group of pretty serious Xbox collectors. I don't know, like 10 years you can go back and find some threads, even longer than that. Not one of these threads has ever mentioned NBA Ballers Platinum Hits. And there are plenty of other like weird, unverified and unconfirmed Platinum Hits games. But like two years ago, maybe, is when like one popped up somewhere. I forgot who got it. Was it like the Pirate Pimp, or did he get the second one? And it was like the only complete in box copy known to be in collectors' hands. And so there was this year or two period where no one had it, so the price is just whatever. And it's like, oh my God, is no one going to complete their Platinum Hit sets? And here we are a couple years later, and there's two on eBay, both for exorbitant prices. One's like $700 and one's just ridiculous, I think. But no one's buying them. So it's interesting. If you really needed to complete your Xbox Platinum Hits set, there it is. There are Platinum Hits games that definitely aren't on eBay, even for $700. I just think it's kind of an interesting story.
Agreed. And people do complete subsets, so I think it's worthwhile to talk about Platinum Hits. And Platinum Hits is like, if you were going to find weird, interesting collectibles in the Xbox library, that's where you find it, especially like the weird variants, because you have the Platinum Hits, and then you have like the best of Platinum Hits, and then the best of like family. You have like weird title differences that cause variance within just collecting that. So Platinum Hits is a strange subset. I don't know what's going on. I mean,
it's the rabbit hole I was going down before 2019 happened.
It is
I'm kind of happy.
Hole.
Like looking back, like I'm happy something shook me out of it, because it's like, what am I doing? If you're the guy and you need NBA Ballers, that's the one Platinum Hits game you don't have, and you're considering spending $700 for the one on eBay, it's just like, there are so many games that have history and importance and popularity and rarity. So to just go for like the NBA Ballers Platinum Hits, it just feels awful. Just $700 is so much money.
It was the Driver Parallel Lines Limited Edition. That was the game that was very hard for me to get at the time.
All right. Tyler, do you want to pick a set? What do you want to talk about here?
Johnny, I want to talk about the Wii U. I want to talk
surprisingly
about
collectible.
I want to talk about anti-set killing. I want to talk about games that don't even make sense. Johnny, okay. I mentioned this before, and I don't mean to disparage how people collect. I think a lot of people collect the Wii U because it's a very easy set to collect. I don't know how bad it's got since COVID, but like the entire Wii U set was like literally $2,000 for every single game in 2018 probably.
It's more expensive than that, but still.
It's obviously more expensive than that now. Johnny, the Devil's Third is the most expensive. Let's discount all the Nintendo Store limited editions, all the weird stuff. The most expensive Wii U game is the Devil's Third. It sells for over $500.
Crazy.
It's not like
it's not a fluke.
Sometimes it sells for over $500. I'm not talking about a 30-year-old game. I'm not talking about Aero the Acrobat 2, which has a $400 manual, and that manual is really rare. Talking about multiple times a week, people go on eBay and they spend like $600 on a game that came out like 5 years ago, and it's not rare. It's not even the rarest Wii U game.
Tyler,
maybe it's the rarest Wii U game, but what the fuck? There are so many copies.
Tyler, I heard GameStop only got one or two copies of each GameStop.
I don't understand. Even if like you woke up out of like cryogenic sleep and the only thing you read on you got like a notification on your phone and it was that fake article that Devil's Third, only 600 copies were allocated to GameStop or whatever that article was at the time. If you go on eBay, there's like 75 copies between the sold listings and the ones for sale. How are people spending $500? And the answer is it's not a set killer. It's that so many people are willing to collect the Wii U set because it's such a small and kind of simple set to collect that they're just like, YOLO, fuck it. There's one game I gotta spend $500 on. I don't care. Because it's the last game, there's dozens of people willing to spend whatever for the fucking Devil's Third. Man, it's such a weird thing.
I think a lot of people, to your point, Tyler, like, and because this happened to me, God, what was the game? Oh, it was fucking SOS for fucking Super Nintendo. Do you guys remember when I completed that? I know John remembers the story.
You jacked the price on that game for like a month.
People get really irrational as they get closer to the end of the set. So yes, to Tyler's point, I think there's truth in that when you get down to like, oh, this is the last game I need, there's going to be more willingness to do things that are probably not making much sense, like paying $600 for that game. Because SOS, I jacked the price on that by like 400 or 500% for a little while because I pulled the trigger on a game that was like, it was like a loose copy of it. What'd I pay, Johnny? Like $300 or $400?
Something stupid.
for the last, because it was just the only one available at the time, and it was like a $50 game or something like that.
Sure was.
Yeah. So yeah.
I can't believe I'm going to defend you, but you bought that 7 years ago? When did you even buy that?
Yeah, something like that.
So you bought that 7 years ago. It was a vintage game, and the market had clearly shook out. And yes, you overpaid like a crazy person, but it was the only one available. It is so clear that the Devil's Third is not a objectively rare game. And the only reason it's selling like this is because, if I had to guess, it's because, one, there are people who are like, oh my god, I'm in the spec game, I gotta get the quote-unquote rarest Wii U game, and it's Devil's Third. There are people like that going after it as, like, investments. And I think there's probably a lot of people that are at the end of their Wii U set all at the same time. And if we waited 5 years or 10 years... I mean, I don't know that it's going to go back down in price because everyone knows video game prices only go up forever. But like, it's just the worst possible time because everyone's trying to complete their set. But I think the people going after a Wii U set, I guess they just have $500. They're like, yeah, I mean, if it's the capstone, whatever. I'm not going to wait 5 years rather than spend $500.
I mean, if you take that $500 and then like break it down to like how much you're paying to like not have to wait that 5 years, if it's like
guys, you need to take your $500, you put it in an S&P 500 index fund. Just go to reserved investments on YouTube. He explains all of it.
Gross.
Devil's
All right.
Third. Pretty sure I have it sealed just because I bought it on Amazon and never opened it.
Oh, how'd you get it on Amazon? It was only sold at GameStop.
Oh, right. There's only like 600. Never mind. I must be crazy.
So, I got like where we are long into this. We're gonna have a part 2 to this, but we got a few more systems I want to touch on before we get out the door here.
do it.
So, and this is like a weird one, and I want to see what you guys think about 32X here. 32X, Amazing Spider-Man Web of Fire. People do, it's a tiny little set. People do go after it, or they say, I'm not going to do that set because I don't want to spend $1,000 on the Web of Spider-Man.
Because Web of Fire is fucking dumb. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is crazy, especially now given the hype and popularity of Spider-Man and, you know, all things Marvel and people in the comics being here. Like, Spider-Man should be more desirable than ever. But I've heard people, at least back in the olden times, they're like, I'm not doing that. Man, I can't pay that money for Spider-Man. And that's back when it was $200 and $300 and $400.
No, it's $1,400.
Yeah, $1,400 to $1,000 sold. So what do you guys think on this? Is this a set killer? I just want to, like, we don't have to have a huge discussion about it. Set killer or no?
No, I mean to your point, I think, and I've heard this conversation multiple times from people who actually did refuse to start the set because they didn't want to buy Spider-Man. I think that does 100% happen. So for me, I'm going to say, yeah, it's a set killer, or if we want to classify it differently, as a set non-starter. You know, it is a very, it's only like 40, 50 titles, right, Johnny? How many fucking titles
There's
are in
like 30. There's less than that, right?
Not a lot.
Yeah, not a lot. So yeah, I could see that where like if you have if you wanted to collect the set and there's only like a handful and the lion's share of that value is in a single game. Because there's like the runner up to this game is like way, like number 2 is like way below it, right?
It's Pitfall, and which is actually more than you think. Pitfall was a game that came out of nowhere. That was like kind of uncommon, but not too hard to find. And it was, I think it was a World Series Baseball. Deion Sanders was like the other hard one, and I think Pitfall has surpassed that.
Anyway, so yeah, I have heard, you know, multiple times of people say, like, when they're talking about doing their sets, that they didn't want to do 32X because of Web of Fire, to the point where I know we have talked about many times on this show as to whether or not 32X counts as part of the Genesis set, which I know is a contested topic among the three of us.
I mean, it says Genesis on it. I don't know what.
Shut up. And I think that's like Web of Fire has a lot to do with why we bothered to explain this set out of the Genesis set, because nobody wants to pay fucking $1,400 for Web of Fire.
Fair. Tyler?
I think this is interesting because so many, so we look at a game like KO Flying Squadron, which is now $3,000, and say that's even a Sega Genesis add-on, and we say, yeah, it's not a set killer, because anyone crazy enough that's going after Sega CD games for, 150 games, they get to the end and then they probably buy it because they're somewhat available. I don't have a 32X set, and I would say part of that is because I just don't want to buy Web of Fire, and that was before it was $1,400. because the 32X, the Sega CD set, I think is so interesting that it's worth overcoming the hurdles. I think the 32X set is just such garbage and so boring that I don't want to even have the smallest roadblock into completing it. Like, I have some 32X games just because I got the ones that were cheap, but like I have no interest in completing the set. What would I need to complete the set? Probably like 9 games, and just like I have no interest in it. So yes, it's a set killer.
Certified! Did it!
Yeah.
No one saw that coming. All right. Boom, set killer. Also, just a quick aside. If you collect the world set, all the games, there's not that many extra that you have to go get for the 32X, but one that's going to be in your way is, I'm going to say it wrong, but it's Darkside, Darxide. That game, it's a PAL exclusive. Super hard to find. It's expensive when you do find it. I don't know who's after it. There's been repros of it made and like different like ports to the Genesis repros and stuff. So it's around. You can find it if you want to play it, but it's not very common. And I think it stops people dead in their tracks. But there's a lot of weird, expensive PAL games. I think for the PAL collectors, it's kind of their Web of Spider-Man, but worse because it's less available. So...
I remember there was a few years ago, there was a repro Darkside that sold for like hundreds of dollars. It was weird. Now I just looked it up. You could get a repro for like $30, but weird.
Yeah, it's a strange one. Hey, just real quick for people who are going to ask, Dreamcast. So no, there's no set killers on the Dreamcast.
No, there's not. They're not. And unless, because I that was the last set. I think that was the last set that I did, or close to the last set that I did. No, that's not true. GameCube was the last set, but Dreamcast was close to the last set, which was only a couple years ago. So unless, that's why I was staring at this, and I was going to ask you, Johnny, unless something has drastically changed in Dreamcast collecting over the last couple of years, which, pandemic, that would be possible. I agree that there's no set color. Cannon Spike, while the most expensive, or at least it was at the time, not difficult to find. I found multiple copies, including a sealed copy that I had. It's just not.
Nope.
There's nothing.
Nothing has changed. It's still Cannon Spike, Gigawing 2, and Project Justice, and a couple others. They're all in this like $300 range. It's not to say that Dreamcast doesn't have some expensive games, but it definitely isn't. There's nothing impeding you. If you're into the Dreamcast, just enjoy. Like even Speed Devils, like the bona, like the Walmart edition without the devil, like none of that's going to stop you. Like, and also it doesn't count.
One of the web browsers, I think, was technically the hardest thing to find for me.
Yeah, the version 3. I yelled at you for it, and then I think you did fine on it. Anyways, so no set killers there. Let's get into one we do have to talk about for a second, and we've got some contentious opinions on it. Nintendo 64. Hey guys, I think we all know what the set killer is for the Nintendo 64, and it's Super Bowling, right?
Nope.
Super Bowling?
What are you talking about?
I mean, I'm just saying, Super Bowling is now $3,500. I just wanted to point out that Super Bowling is now a $3,500 game. Jesus Christ, who is buying this trash? Are you this in? Like, I'm just and this comes into my point when we're getting to Sculptor's Cut, which is the real game here at the top of the mountain. But if you are willing to pay $3,500 for a complete and box Sculptor's Cut, there is nothing stopping you from completing your set. You're just, if you're lighting that money on fire for Super Bowling, you will not be stopped, you maniac. And that brings us to, I don't even understand how Sculptor's Cut has gotten to, what's the price on a Sculptor's Cut now? You can get a cart for $1,200, but like maybe $10,000, $4,000, $5,000, $8,000.
Definitely not $4,000 or $5,000. I think it's going to be much more.
It's insane. Yeah, Sculptor's Cut. And there's not like, it's not like there's complete and boxed ones. Even on eBay, there's one like bad fake box that sold for $3,200. But they're just not even available now. I don't understand what's happened with Sculptor's Cut.
Yeah, I mean, if that's true, then I guess my take changes immediately because I think it's no secret that during this entire conversation I've really touted as what the availability is as being my lead here. So now when I was doing N64, Sculptor's Cut was expensive, but also incredibly available.
I mean, card is still available, but not complete in box. Manual's always been tough. Box is usually available, but
so if they are nowhere to be seen, then I'm going to agree that it would be a set killer.
Tyler?
I think we're in such a weird time. I think a lot of rare and nice stuff is probably getting bought up, and either it's caught up in the grading cycle where things take months and months to get done, or people are just kind of holding on to them. Either because they're waiting for grading to be cheaper, or they're waiting for new grading companies to start grading stuff, or things like that, where stuff is getting bought up and not immediately getting put out on the market. So I think it's probably just a bad time to buy Sculptor's Cut. So I wouldn't completely base the availability on what's on eBay today.
I will say a manual sold for $3,800 in January.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
See, the thing is, let me give you an example, Johnny, of a YouTuber who I like
by
very
the way,
much.
I want to say I thought that was like a pretty good point that you made, like about people hoarding things and waiting.
Yeah.
So I thought that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Get the Greg Games, Johnny, just recently gave up on his Nintendo 64 set, and he has a complete box Sculptor's Cut. Sculptor's Cut wasn't what did it for him. It was just that.
Was it Super Bowling?
No, just the high end. I think he had a Super Bowling too. Just the high end of N64, just the kind of doldrums, like, like the last 20 games you need for any set are just like 20 garbage games, and you have to pay $400 or more for each of them. And he just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, if you can't stomach that, set collecting isn't for you. Get over it. Like, how many times have I paid over $100 for a soccer game? And I hate it. But yeah. If you can't bite that one off, then you're not going to be able to swallow the rest of them.
Look, I think when both of us were doing the Super Nintendo, like, I think we agreed that like the middle is that's what like will make or break you. Like with larger sets like that, like Super, when you have, it's like, I have 200 games that are within the like $75 to $125 range.
Yeah,
or whatever.
And now it's even worse. Yeah, that.
Fuck. Yeah.
All right. Maybe not the worst one. I'll call Complete in Box Sculptor's Cut a set killer, Johnny. I think the cartridge, though, is the opposite. The cartridge is closer to a Devil's Third situation, where so many people collect loose N64 sets, and then they just get to that last cart that they're just like, oh, YOLO, I'm here at the end. I'll just pay fucking whatever. And now Sculptor's Cut is like $1,000, which is crazy, because they are definitely available.
Certified. Man, Sculptor's Cut made it, but Daytona Netlink didn't get certified. That's the world when a mail order like cart versus a largest video game or video store chain in the world exclusive beats out a mail order from SegaParts.com or whatever. Just that's insane to me. But all right, I'm going to agree with you. We'll go ahead. We'll certify it. I still can't believe we didn't certify Daytona, but sure. I was downvoted, guys. So
wait, how did we not? No, we did. Wait.
We did certify it because
we did certify Daytona because I said I was actual proof.
Okay, thank God. Thank God. I thought Tyler was like had me convinced. No.
Yeah, that n equals 1.
That's right.
Actually
You did.
My set.
You did make that. You made that argument. I'm sorry. I forgot.
It's all right.
All right. We did.
Johnny, can we get to some weird modern stuff if you want to move on?
Well, I mean, yeah, we got some weird modern stuff. Then I want to go back to GameCube after that.
Okay. I want to talk about the PS Vita, because I don't even understand this.
I don't understand it either.
I don't understand what matters anymore, or the prices people are willing to pay for something that is objectively not at all old. Binding of Isaac Rebirth. It's a PS Vita game. Does one of you know the story better? Because it was one of these games where it's like, are they going to make the physical release? Where's the physical release? Is this coming out? It was almost like a Axiom Verge situation on Wii U. Mm-hmm. And there are copies that exist. I don't know if they all have hole punches in the back, that they're promotional copies. Every copy I've seen has the hole punch in the back where it's like, hey, don't sell this, by the way. And I saw a story of a game store where someone brought like a bunch of hole punch copies into like a game store to trade them in, and one of them was Binding of Isaac. So it could just be that all the copies of these are like weird promotional copies, and this game was never actually sold, but it does exist. and like it's selling for $3,500 to $5,000 to $7,000, like bananas money for a Vita game. I don't even understand it.
I don't understand either. I don't understand the hole punch thing. I know like Sony is big on hole punching games when they are, promo copies are sent for review copies or in development copies. I don't understand what's going on with Vita. I don't understand the full story of The Binding of Isaac, but if you're looking for one, I think one sold for like $3,700 and then there's one listed at like $7,000. So yeah, I don't know. YOLO. But Vita also went through a crazy price spike during the pandemic. Vita got real expensive, guys, just so you know.
Also, like, I'd love to talk to a Vita collector because honestly, I don't know many Vita collectors, but like how they process the fact that there's just so many limited run titles on the Vita.
I can speak to that because I was in Vita collecting at the heyday of limited run, and I have like the first half, which I think is like 60 or something Vita games. And at that time, you're like, oh, it's like this cool thing, and the system was dying. It was like a dead system at that point from like a retail perspective, except for a few.
Objectively, it's neat. Like, it's a neat
you're
thing.
like, and limited run games was new, and like they're like, we're only making 1,500 copies, and you're like, oh shit, I got to get in. So like that was kind of exciting and interesting at the time. You're like, oh okay, and then the slog started happening, and it definitely ground me out of like I just didn't have the stomach, especially because you were collecting a system that you could no longer collect used games for. It was basically you were becoming a sealed collector is what was happening. So you had to pay new prices for everything, which is not in my ethos of how I collect games, buying all new games. Like I'm not like one of these Switch collectors who's trying to keep up with every new Switch release. I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do. You're probably fine in the end, but like that's an expensive game to be playing, and I'm buying for a lot of systems. So I just don't want to do that. Especially I was still in the middle of, I think, some other sets at the time. So it was like, this is wild. Like, and would I rather do this or complete PlayStation 1? And definitely PlayStation 1 was the answer. So the Vita stuff was interesting at the time, but yeah, definitely got harder. And then you have like the poop slingers of the worlds, and like it became less fun as time went on. So as someone who was in it, I hope that was enough explanation.
I think Binding of Isaac Rebirth on the Vita would drive me crazy because it's so crazy that people are willing to spend this much when no one has any idea how many are out there. Like someone could be literally sitting on a box of these. I mean, if there are multiples that exist and they have trickled out throughout the country, like you'll find on Reddit, like, oh, I have Binding of Isaac Rebirth. There's clearly not many of them available, but there are some people who have them who just like had them out and about. There's like, oh yeah, I got this. So there could be 100 copies, there could be 4,000 copies, but man, it would drive me crazy knowing that there's like a physical game that exists, was 100% produced, real, and
well, is it produced?
What was that?
Is it produced though? Is it like, are we guaranteed? So that's like one thing I want to talk about. You can keep going.
No, yeah, I mean they were. It's a real retail copy of the game. It's just the hole punch through the UPC.
So. Yes. So here's an argument I want to make. Just because something goes through the whole process, can even have a UPC, doesn't mean it's released, right? You can go through all of the motions of getting it to be a retail copy and then never actually release a game. This has happened before. And there are games and people like I get into fight, like GBA is one I get into a fight about. We can kind of talk about this because I would tell you Sega Rally for the GBA is, I mean, it's like a $1,200 game. It's not a set killer, but it's expensive. But you have like this 4-in-1 cartridge, or that's like I forget the games that are all on the 4-in-1 because there's a couple of them. But this one, there's been like a manual found, but there's never been a box found for it. And you have things like the 2-pack of Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Library. So like, they are kind of there. People have seen them, but you've never seen that wide enough swath for me to 100% say this is definitely sold at retail. Did they make retail copies? Did they make press copies? Quite possibly. And that includes like dummy copies that will have a UPC, like ready to go. Like these are demoing for what we're going to send to retail. Like we made 20 of these, but that doesn't mean a full retail run was ever released. And I'm curious if Binding of Isaac is in that situation. And I'm not saying I know that for sure happened with those GBA games. I just speculate because not enough has happened yet. Not like as in being found.
All right, I don't know the full story of Binding of Isaac. I just know that it was like kind of this planned and wanted physical release for years. So I have to imagine that some copies were physically produced for whatever reason. It doesn't look like there was some kind of meant to be promotional thing. It looks like they were like, nah, we're not going to release this. Just punch it. I don't know what they did. Punch the UPC and give them out to Gary, and he can distribute them on the 3rd floor or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll just mention NBA Elite, similar situation. We can just wrap up at the end here. So NBA Elite was physically produced. They released a demo of the game. It was like fucking horrible and buggy. It was so bad it was going to like ruin the who made that? EA, I think. It was like going to ruin their credibility if they released this game, because that's how bad the reaction to the demo was. Like, there were viral clips on YouTube of how bad this game was.
It's got to be, if anything could ruin EA's reputation more than it is, that's insane, by the way.
So the game was canceled. They'd physically produced the game. I don't remember if they shipped it to stores already, but it was like ready to go. And then they're like, nope. And they canceled it. So now physical copies for both PS3 and Xbox 360 are incredibly rare because it was unreleased, but people even buy the store display copies because like GameStop had store display copies, just the empty box up for like, this game is going to be for sale, but because it was canceled, like those have become incredibly collectible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think most people would easily discount it from the set, but because real copies of the game exist, it will be this nagging thing in my mind, like, oh, is it really complete? I mean, the game exists. So I don't even know what to do with it. I mean, I guess I kind of wouldn't count it, but man,
I wouldn't count that.
Borderline.
And I'm not sure if I would count Binding of Isaac. So, like, I wouldn't certify NBA Elite or Binding of Isaac just because I'm so unsure of their status.
Yeah, I would do that too. I mean, all these are, I mean, I guess that's not recent. That's 10 years ago, but Binding of Isaac's a pretty recent situation.
So the last one I want to talk about, and we have more on this list that could be gone into another time, another episode where we can go through some other sets. But I think one we'd be remiss not to talk about, because so many people go hard at it, is GameCube, and we're talking about whether it's a set killer or not. Man, I can't believe we didn't talk about PlayStation or PlayStation 2. That's crazy. Just no set killers.
A lot of video game consoles.
Yeah, there's no set killers there. Anyways, GameCube. How do we feel about the GameCube? Go ahead.
Are we specifically talking about Pokemon Box?
We are going to, yeah. That's the one, because I want to ask you guys first. I mean, it should be on the document that you can read. But I want to ask, does it count? Does Pokemon count? Is it a game? Is this like the weird Sega CD games, Modern Rock, or like Animals? Any of these games that aren't really games? This is just a storage system. Do you even count this as a game for your set?
It's not a game. 100% not a game. Actually, not a game. It is a utility. But it's going to come down to like, if you're doing the like disc-based systems with like the fucking encyclopedias on them, do you count the encyclopedias? I think there's a good argument to make that those don't count, and I count Compton's. Sure. But I mean, when you tell me Compton's doesn't count for Sega CD, I can see your argument. You tell me Animals doesn't count, or like maybe Crisscross doesn't count. I get your argument. Same with like all the weird stuff on CDI and 3DO. Yeah. PSP. Do all those PSP movies count?
No, absolutely not. They're sub-names. Same for GBA videos. They do not count.
But I think a similar sort of argument could be made. I could see someone very easily explaining Pokemon Box out of the Game Boy set, or out of the GameCube set. Easy, for sure.
I mean, my question though, like, I could agree that you would say it's not part of the set. I have it in mind, like, but can you, like, are people doing that, or are people so excited because it's Pokemon that they're just buying it? That's like, are people, like, I think this is a game, and why I think it's interesting, that you could definitely 100% explain away and have some good, solid reasoning, but I don't think people are doing that with this. I think this is one of the ones that people have gone the other way on. Tyler?
I wonder
Stephen?
I wonder if people with sets are buying that, or if it's the like investment crowd.
I mean, you went for it. Yeah, but you went for it. I went for it as set collectors. I know other people went for it as set collectors. I know Pokemon collectors are just after it. And anything that someone's just after isn't like, can't be a set killer, right? If people are just buying it to put in their collection.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like, it's just, to me, it's whether you count it as a game or not at all. I'm confused on it. I have thoughts on it, obviously, but I'm unsure.
There's also a significant number of sales even for CIB, and so for clarity, CIB is it's a GameCube big box for people not familiar. It's like a double wide or a quadruple wide or whatever. That it's an exterior cardboard box with the GameCube GameCube clamshell in that box, and then it also comes with the link cable or whatever.
Link cable and a memory card comes in the actual standard clamshell Game Boy case.
Right, and you would need that outer box for CIB. And I'm looking, and there's like, it's at least selling once or twice a month at ridiculous prices, don't get me wrong, but like in the last 2 years, it's averaging 1 to 2 sales a month, in the $2,000 to $3,000 range.
Yeah,
which is bananas.
It sells all the time. This is not...
I don't see a lot of completes. I'm looking through eBay, like actually complete with the memory card, with the outer box, like not completely wrecked, doesn't seem to come up. The price, so like the actual like totally 100% nice complete thing, like I could almost understand that. The prices people are paying for just the DVD case are fucking obscene for a GameCube game. Like $1,000 to $2,000 for the incomplete thing. What is wrong with you people? It's not even 20 years old, is it?
GameCube might be 20 years old. I don't know.
GameCube might not Pokemon box.
Yeah.
Man.
So is it a game? Does it count for the set? Is it a set killer? Let's give it a verdict on this thing.
So I'm gonna say no. Again, it's not a game for one thing. But also, it's common enough that also the GameCube set in of itself is like kind of ridiculous and has been kind of ridiculous for a while. So like, I don't think that there's like such a huge delta between like Pokemon box and, I mean, yes, obviously it's like probably over $1,000, but like there are several games in the GameCube set that are really expensive. So like, I don't see, it's not like such a tremendous jump. Like, I mean, obviously Stadium Events is the prime example of like it being ridiculously expensive and then the number 2 game falling vastly below it. I just don't see that kind of delta for Pokemon box. Also, it's reasonably available. And not a game.
I think Gotcha Force might be the next one, and Cubivore, and those are in the $700 range and lower. So, and Pokemon box is up above that by quite a bit.
No, for sure. But yeah. I'm just saying that if you're spending like $700 a pop on like a handful of games, a single purchase of a $2,000 to $3,000 game is not going to stop you.
Yeah, I mean, also just shout out to Disney Sports Basketball for suddenly being like a $600 game, and Go-Go Hyper Grind. Like Cubivore, Go-Go Hyper Grind, and Gotcha Force always had some hype, but Disney Sports Basketball came out of kind of nowhere. And the last thing I want to ask you guys just on GameCube, just I want to know if it counts. Do you guys count this? And this just doesn't count for the show. Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker combo, and Metroid Prime. Does that count? Like, do you need that for your set? Or if you have both of those games independently, do you have every game for it? Or is this like a unique SKU so you have to have it?
I counted it. I counted all the various combo discs.
I mean, I bought it, but I mean, does it count?
Yeah, I think it does.
Tyler?
I think it's a separate leaf. Especially, I think you can make the argument for a combo disc where it's like, you know, or like it's art. You know, it's not just a bundle, right? If it was like a bundle with like a fucking slipcase over it, like the Resident Evil bundles I'm thinking of. I mean, those are also budget titles, but you know what I mean. Like if it was like just the retail releases in a slipcase, that would be one thing. But it is custom art with its own UPC SKU, the whole thing. So like it's that. I think that absolutely counts.
Tyler, Rebuttal?
I don't. I guess I track sets differently from most sources because I separate all my sets out by individual games and multi-cards. So I don't have like Super Mario Duck Hunt is not in my NES list. So yeah,
That's
Metroid
weird.
Prime Wind Waker, which is just an insert variant, is in my multi-pack list along with Super Monkey Ball and Resident Evil and all of those.
So
I mean, I think there is a list where it counts where it's like the Black Label list because it is a Black Label release, but not for me.
Okay.
Also, I'm gonna say Pokemon Box definitely a set killer. I think the obscene prices of DVD, of just the DVD without the outer box, is showing me that people are settling for the DVD just to check the box, and they're just like, fuck the box. And that means they're discounting half of the game. Like the interesting, condition-sensitive, hard to find nice half of the game because they're just like, fuck it, it's a checkbox. So
that's why. But they're not doing it. They're not saying fuck it because it's fucking hard to find or because it's super expensive. They're doing it because they don't care because it's not a game. That's why they're discounting it. They're not discounting it because they're not settling because oh my god, going the extra mile is so fucking far and away outside my budget or it's so much more difficult to find. It's that they literally do not care.
See, I don't know. I think
they are settling.
I mean, that's an interesting point. Like, I don't know if I agree 100%, but I think Tyler does have an interesting point that a lot of people are settling because, like you said, like to use your argument against you, Stefan, it's not that far out of there. Like the cost from one to the other isn't so great, especially when you're already spending that much money. So why aren't they just waiting to get the box? Why are they
stupid?
Well, because they're stupid or because it's not available? Because it doesn't complete the box.
It has to be available.
Does it?
Yeah.
I think Stefan's biased by his awesome sealed copy that was cheaper than a DVD case costs now.
So I don't know. I don't know if I can certify this one. See, I might buy into the box version complete being a set killer and the DVD one not being just the standard clamshell case not being a set killer. And don't say DVD case because it's not a DVD case. It's a clamshell style case. That thing won't hold the DVD.
All right, fine. What is it? Whatever the GameCube discs are called.
Yeah.
GameCube disc format. I'm sure it's something like that.
Yeah.
All right, fine. We'll disagree on that. Fun point about Pokemon Box Ruby and Sapphire. Like literally one of the most common sealed Japanese GameCube games. I have a new copy. I got it for like $40. So if you want an alternative, you can go get that.
Yep. I mean, if you want to explain away not buying the good version, you can go buy that version, just like Tyler did.
No, I only buy original prints. I got the good version.
See, man, see, I love how you created this justification for yourself. It's amazing how you did this. Anyways, that's all we have time to talk about. We have more. The full list of stuff that we considered will be released on our Patreon. And hey, here's the plug for that. So stop listening if you want. You can join us if you want to be on our Discord by joining our Patreon at collectorsquest.com. Patreon.com/collectorsquest. You get access to our Discord for as little as $2 or as much as $6, and you get our bonus content. But $4 is the sweet spot where you get the best stuff. So if you're going to join, probably join there. Anyways, if you want to do that and hang out with us, please join. If not, totally understand. You get the same great content. And that's going to wrap up this portion of the show. We're going to go on to the next. Stefan, if you got to bail on this, I know you have a little one and you're by yourself. Totally understandable.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay, just wanted to check in. I know we're going longer than I intended this episode to go.
Real long, yeah.
Just like every single episode of the show.
We made a list of 50 things, and going by the pace of this show, we totally expected to get through this in 90 minutes.
Yeah. Oh God, I should have known better. Like I should know this. That's bad on me. Anyways, Tyler, I've stalled for you. Do you have a collector's question ready for us?
Johnny Tiger Wolf asks, in episode 1, I'm going to guess that's quote unquote 1/5, you announce Kat as a new host. What came before episode 1?
Okay. I've explained this before, but it's good to go over it. So yeah, I messed up the numbering because I was trying to get back to this. I should have just announced this as its own thing. I didn't have that big a following. But I started the show with a friend named Bobby. Really, he came to me as hey, I want to I want you to explain to me how to become a video game collector, what you do, and as I like go through this journey. And so it's Collector's Quest as we as collectors take this journey and quest to get games. And I was like, okay, yeah, we'll do that. And then we got like 4 episodes in, and he got a job where he could no longer talk about video games, and he had to go because of that. So the podcast got stopped, and I was like, man, I was doing the blog before this. I continued to write the blog, but I really wanted to get back to the podcast, except I did not have the technical skill. Go listen to the first, I don't know, Tyler, did you come in on episode 76?
Sure.
You can see how bad the audio is and what technical skills I didn't have or software or anything. But I said, I don't care about those limitations. I really want to do this, and I'm going to go do that. So I went and I looked for another host. And to be completely honest, there's lots of guys who just talk about video games, especially like on YouTube. And that was the thing. And some other prominent video game kind of collecting-ish podcasts where it's just two dudes. So I was like, hey, let's get a female voice in here. So I went and I found Kat because I wanted just an alternate point of view. I wanted someone who wasn't going to agree with me or, maybe was coming from a different space. Didn't work out exactly like that, but Kat was great and we just ran with it. So I introduced her as a new host, made the numbering weird. So it was just my bad. That's what came before it. A couple episodes with Bobby and I. You can still find, I think, the first 2 if you look hard and find who I follow or who Collector's Quest follows. I think it's under maybe Bobby's or my original SoundCloud account where you can find kind of the first 2. But for some reason, I think we lost, or maybe 3 and 4. We lost 2 of the episodes, 2 of the 4 that were there. So,
does he still collect? I'm just curious.
Bobby never fully collected. Really, he is a guy who has a great passion for video games and retro games and has a lot of good nostalgic memories for them, and he picks stuff up here and there, and loves new games too. Loves gaming, but never fully embraced collecting. And I think a lot of it because his career was changing at the time. He was just getting married and I think his life was going through a lot of change at that time. So it wasn't maybe necessarily the best time for him to get into it. And because of that, I don't think he ever fully got to become a collector. He has definitely a collection of games, but not like what we would say.
Well, thanks for the podcast, Bobby.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Bobby. Thanks.
Lord Hardstyle Z asks, and I'm just going to paraphrase, someone bought a not-for-resale variant of a game for a few bucks more than the regular release of a game in the Discord here. Is it common for variants to follow the price of the original game, or do some cost a bunch more or even less?
It really depends on the type of game. It depends on the game, the situation. Because there's a lot of DS promo copies and 3DS promo copies that are less or penny. Super Nintendo not for resale cartridges at once upon a time weren't that much more expensive than the regular copies, and some were even very cheap, like Ken Griffey.
Yeah, they really, really are. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, sorry, there's not a clean answer for this as far as I'm considering it. I would say they would trend maybe towards more NFRs usually do, but situational.
I got a little bit of input on this. So generally, I think, and I'm sure there are exceptions to the rule, but variants that are external to the product, like sticker variants, for instance, tend to probably command the least premium, although I can already think of exceptions, like the ridiculous sticker variants on the Master System. But things that directly affect the label, so Johnny was talking about the Super Nintendo not for resale carts. There's actually several different types of not for resale carts on the Super Nintendo. The most expensive ones are the ones that actually say not for resale as a printed part of the label versus being stickered, or actually in some cases handwritten. But to Johnny's original point, it varies wildly because there's certainly variants that no one cares about, and as conversely, as the last couple of years have taught us, there are some variants that people genuinely care about a lot. Super, as far as asking what variants cost, it's sort of like asking what a car costs. It's a very broad question.
I think it's all hype. I mean, I'm
Shut
not
up.
going to say that
No, you don't.
3 years ago no one cared about matte sticker Marios because they definitely had a premium. They weren't going for $10,000. I don't know what they go for now. A lot of fucking money. I would say if you take it from a completely objective point of like you could look at enough games and find some difference between them, the vast majority of variants are undocumented, so just forget about whatever variants are expensive and go find your own exciting rare variants because they're easy to find. Just go find one.
And those will be your cheap ones.
Until we do the movie ticket variant episode, we're going to have a few of, so don't you worry, we'll tell you which variants to collect there. And if
Johnny, you know who found a Curious George movie ticket variant pretty recently? Might be the first discovered one. VG Collectaholic.
Man, is this
Curious George on the Xbox?
Man, he's got to just love all the shout outs he's getting right now.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we have so many other Patreons we could mention, but like, we'll just keep talking about him.
You know who we haven't shouted at yet, Johnny?
Is that Red the Game Shark?
Red the Game Shark.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you need cheap import games, there's only one place to go, and that's Red the Game Shark and Cheap Games, where you can get your import games for cheap. Any other questions?
I'll do one more.
All right.
Retro Game Enthusiast asks, do you guys cook? Do you have a go-to recipe or style of food? And what's the best takeout?
Okay, so let's define takeout. Like, takeout, pick it up, or delivery? Like, what, like... Or are we talking about style of food specifically? Like, what do we think is the best thing to have delivered?
If you're going to get Uber Eats, where would you order it from?
Okay, so that's not pizza, right? We're taking pizza out of the equation then? Yeah?
No, I think pizza's in the equation.
Okay.
All right, I'll give two recommendations for takeout, or my specifically favorite takeout, and it's interesting because like I don't find myself, for instance, getting a lot of like Mexican takeout, but there is a place in Santa Clarita, California, called La Chorita, and they are a vegan Mexican restaurant.
Nope. Out.
And they have the most amazing burritos ever on the face of the planet. That and there's an empanada restaurant in Burbank, just down the street from Game Realms. World Empanadas.
Oh, interesting. How is that place good?
Oh, it's incredible.
Oh, man.
Absolutely incredible.
I love empanadas so much.
So it's literally down the street from Game Realms. So next time we go, I will take you.
Okay. I'm in. Man, I love an empanada so much.
Yeah, it's so good.
Tyler, what do you got?
Guys, what are empanadas? Okay, those are those things. What are the things I'm thinking of that are like South American tacos? I got to cut this out. I'm going to say something racist if I keep trying to guess at food.
I feel like you already have.
Yeah.
I do cook. I've got this great app called Fitmen Cook, which is it's kind of like Taco Bell. It's a guy who remixes the same 4 ingredients into like 800 different recipes. But if you like salmon and you like chickpeas and you like chicken, I guess you could remix those in 100 different ways. My favorite recipes to make are curries, and I'm bad at them, and Ada doesn't like my curry. Best place to take out.
This is so irrelevant to everyone listening. Like, you're not where we are.
I know. Well, see, I'm not going to pick stupid local restaurants. My favorite pizza is Domino's.
What the?
Incorrect. Ugh.
The Domino's near me has made a downslide, but post like Domino's, hey, we're changing everything and now we're good. It was the best. I seriously think it was the best pizza. Also, I don't like pizza with tomato sauce. I get their garlic sauce, so I'm like a weirdo
like
in terms of pizza.
And you call yourself a New Yorker? You are definitely
he's
from
like,
South
I like
Carolina.
how he's like, Johnny, I like how he's like, I'm not going to say
Carolina.
something stupid.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
At least people can relate to Domino's.
Oh,
I'm not talking about the empanada place up the street.
You're like, let me talk about the most relatable topic on the planet in the most unrelatable way I can possibly do this.
Man, I didn't know you could find a way to ruin pizza, but you did it.
Jesus fucking Christ. You want to put some Weetabix on that shit?
We got, it's a Domino's medium pizza. Medium's the perfect size pizza. It's smaller than a regular pizza, but that makes it a lot easier to hold a slice. You get their garlic sauce and then spinach and feta on the top.
Okay. One pretty incorrect, I think, value for your money has always shown that mediums are never the way to go because the price difference between a large and then if you measure the diametrical difference between a medium and a large, the value is truly in the large. So
100%.
So get that.
But it's not about the value. The value to me comes from not having a floppy slice of pizza.
So what you do is buy the thin if you don't want it floppy or the thick. Like, I don't know. I don't find Domino's pizza incredibly floppy. It's not like one of these big weird thin ones that like just you don't have to New York
that
style
are like 90% grease and then
yeah, like what is it, Sbarro or whatever in the mall?
Yeah,
like gross.
no thank you.
No, hard pass. One, I will say Domino's value for your money, like pretty good. And to defend their medium pizza, they usually have like a $5.99 deal, and you can like grab a pizza. Like it's just hard to beat that because it's not awful. And I love so much pizza, even frozen pizza, like a bad Gino's pizza or Totino's, if you know what I'm talking. Like those are fine with me. I'm good with that. Mama Celeste, sure, bring it on. I like they are all just their own different class of pizza because pizza is one of the most perfect foods. I was told once by my mother, who's been proven to be wrong about most things. So this will not shock you. Johnny, you're working at the pizza place, and I was working at Round Table at the time. So like, you're going to find that after working there, you're not going to like pizza very much after, because she knew how much I liked pizza. And yeah, pizza is still my favorite. Like pizza tacos, man, it's just, I literally ate pizza every day for 2 years and never grew sick of it. Never, ever. And I think I could do the same. There's so many things you can do with pizza. It's so versatile. Just challenge yourself when you eat pizza and you'll get good things. Yeah. Pizza's great.
Johnny, what are you buying? What are you playing?
I want to know what Stefan's buying.
No,
Don't ask me.
He's got like 3 months
He
of
hasn't
things to
been
catch
here
up
in a while.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. What'd you buy? Did you buy any games?
No games.
No.
No.
Not one.
I don't think so. I don't think I bought a game. Oh no, you know what I did? I bought the I sprung for, because I think we've talked about this. I always spring for the Horizon series, so I did spring for the.
Did you buy the statue?
The big Forbidden West one with the giant elephant statue. I did buy that.
You didn't buy both limited editions?
It's real good. No, I did actually.
Oh, God damn it.
because
Tyler said he wanted to know someone who bought both. Here we are.
I've already seen people buy both because you guys are all crazy.
The Regala edition with the earpiece and the statue and shit comes with the steelbook, but no disc. There is no disc in that box. So if you want,
what's the steelbook for?
for
collectors.
Looks. Yeah.
What is the steelbook
People are
for?
stupid.
There's no disc.
There's no disc.
It's already a useless thing that I hate.
No disc.
How did you make it more useless?
Yeah, no disc. It is 100% a code in that box. So that is why I bought both. Also, I bought both because I bought the special edition, the Regala edition, third party, and so I didn't, because I missed out on the pre-sale. So I didn't want to have to wait to play the game. So I did buy the collector's edition so that I could get that immediately from the Amazons, and then my Regala edition. Guys, I wanted the statue, guys.
Okay, I get it. It's fine. Yeah.
So yeah, I bought that. In the art world, the most recent buy that I got really excited about was the original art for the LGN Uncanny X-Men NES game, which also was featured in Nintendo Power Magazine. That piece of art, and it's on my Instagram, you can check it out. What's kind of interesting is that the line work is faked, essentially. It's the actual inks for that were from it was a collage, basically, of pre-drawn Marvel licensing imagery from like the marketing department of Marvel at the time, that they just kind of stuck together, Xeroxed, and then gave someone else to color. So it is the original thing in that the line work doesn't actually exist in that form anywhere. Like, no one actually drew that piece as it is. They Xeroxed it from a number of other pieces, and then hand colored it. So that's on its way. That's the big new piece I'm real excited about.
I like that it fits with your Art of Nintendo Power sign. It's got the same colors going on.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Cool.
Stefan, did you play anything? You play besides Horizon?
Played through Horizon. What else did I play super recently? I don't think anything super not super recently.
Okay.
Yeah, just Horizon.
All right.
I was gonna play Elden Ring and then didn't.
Great.
Wow. It's a good choice.
Yeah, it just I kept looking at it, going like, this seems like it would be neat, but also it seems like I don't have time. So that was that. It was gonna end up being like The Witcher 3, where I played like for an hour, and then I went, okay, I know what this game is, and then I stopped.
Understood. So, Tyler,
Hey,
what about you? What games have arrived to you lately?
Johnny, I got Might and Magic. The first release of Might and Magic for the Apple II. So, Might and Magic was developed by some guy with 3 names. I don't remember. It's like John Van something. Anyway, he couldn't find a publisher for the game. He eventually published it out of his apartment in like spiral bound notebooks with the floppy disk stuck in the end. And it's not like the hardest thing in the world to find, but it's one of these things where there's been an overpriced copy on eBay for a long time in like not the best condition. And one came up that was nicer and cheaper. And I bought it and I'm excited about that, Johnny. And I also got Ultima 4, the first print for the Apple II. It's got a red Apple II sticker on the front instead of a white one. Talking about like well-documented variants that have no price difference, like no one cares about the variants for Ultima, even though in like computer game worlds, it's got to be one of the better documented series in terms of variants, but got that too. Johnny, what was I playing? Is that what you asked me? Waifu Uncovered.
Oh, did you really play it?
No, I played Ultima 4. I beat Ultima 4 finally.
Oh, man, that's not cool. Plus, you got other things you didn't mention.
No. I mean, I got the Half-Life Day 1 disc.
I think something arrived in the mail for you.
Oh, I got a Game Wizard, Johnny. Yes. I forgot it. I just checked my eBay solds when I come up to this section.
I know.
Johnny sent me a Game Wizard, a Star Wars Game Wizard, my childhood handheld. It was better than a Game Gear, I'll give it that. A Game Wizard is a little LCD thing. It's basically Tiger handheld games with 3 interchangeable screens. They're terrible.
No, I was just going to mention, I did pick up, I did get a game since the last time I was here, but I'm pretty sure that I bought it did I buy it while we were on air? I think Tyler pointed this out to me, the copy of Little Big Adventure with the library copy from Origin.
Oh yeah, I don't think we were on air, but yeah.
Yeah, so there was
it may have been After Dark content.
So basically it was a game that, it was a game from the like internal library for Origin, the developer Origin back in the day, like retail games that you could check out of their internal library. And the cool thing is that it has like an actual like old school library check card, you know, like with the little index card that you write your name on it and when you check something out. And fucking Richard Garriott is on this card. And it's just cool because it's like technically, as you know, it's signed by Richard Garriott, sort of, in that he did write his name on this thing.
Guy who normally signs his name as Lord British, which is what makes it cool.
Right. Also, there is a Chris on here that people are speculating as the Wing Commander guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that was an actual. I just wanted to mention that because that was an actual game that I bought.
Speaking of Richard Garriott, I beat Ultima 4 on NES, which is the longest and most arduous NES game I've ever beaten. Holy shit! Is this one of the games you say you beat as a kid? Because it's one of the ones I'm going to say I don't believe you. Speaking of
no, I'm trying to think of. Did I beat Ultima 4?
I don't even remember which one that is.
That's the black box one?
Exodus has a purple box. I don't know on NES.
Pink? No, that's pink, but yeah.
Oh, are you really going to get me on purple versus pink?
Yeah, because colors matter.
It's like magenta. I'm looking at it right now. You know what's more important than the box, the game, Johnny? You go around, you have to become the master of the 8 virtues.
They are the Ultima games were so terrible. Like I hated every NES Ultima I played, and then I went back to it in Super Nintendo and hated it more somehow.
Like Ultima Online was a fucking gift to the humanity, though.
I don't.
Ultima Online was great.
I don't think any kid ever beat Ultima 4. This game's ridiculous. So it is one of these games where it basically drops you off in the world map, and it's just like, I don't go figure out how to beat the game. If you read the manual, it is basically like 3 issues of Nintendo Power worth of what to do in the game and like maps and like just what every town is, what every town has to offer for you. And I still think like I took notes and I made maps. I had a world map that I was drawing on. I had maps of all the dungeons. I had maps of certain other areas of the game. I have taken more notes and made more maps for Ultima 4 on NES than any other game I've ever played. And there are lots of games where I played like dungeon crawlers, like Metroid, where you're making like a graph paper map, like not even close to the amount of notes I took for Ultima 4. Like Morrowind, I had a whole quest journal I kept from Morrowind. Not even close. Games like Myst, where I keep notes on puzzles, not even close. So I think that kids who are expected to beat this when they weren't smart enough to write down everything they ever heard and ever did in the game, I think no kid ever beat Ultima 4.
So I never wrote down notes or anything like that. Never drew a map in my life for a game.
I didn't do it. I think the first game I like actually mapped out was in college. I think it was Shining in the Darkness. So yeah, I didn't do that either. I would just tough through it and just say like, this game sucks. It's too hard. What the fuck?
The only the only game that I ever wrote actually drew maps for by hand was EverQuest back in the day.
Really? Do you need maps for an MMO like that?
You sure fucking did.
Oh man,
in the beginning. In fact, even the actual like EQ Atlas, if you look at the map book that they actually published, they found there was a guy who ran a website where he was hand drawing in colored pencil all of the maps for each of the areas by just like running around, and so they actually published his maps instead of drawing their own.
Sounds like EverQuest might have had some quality of life issues if there was no map in the game to show you.
It wasn't a quality of life issue when we didn't have anything else.
All right.
It only becomes quality of life when there's something better to be had.
When people know that it's ruining their lives by not having this thing?
Right, exactly.
Okay. I'm going to tell you guys what I bought. I don't know if I said this last episode, but I bought that Mattel Electronics D&D LCD
I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with that thing. I like it a lot. It's very fun. Not great. I'm not recommending people buy it unless you like D&D stuff like this. It's a neat thing to have.
It's not fun in the traditional sense.
Yeah, like it goes up on my wall. It's a thing I enjoy seeing in my collection. Some advanced Halloween stuff. I bought Transylvania for the Commodore 64. Talking about hand-drawn maps. This dude had all kinds of maps and notes. It came full of paper, Tyler. I know you love that.
Yeah.
Just like full.
Man, games didn't used to play themselves, Johnny. You had to sit down and you're like, let's start a notebook because I got to play Transylvania.
Yeah, I guess I too could become a writer by playing this game.
None of this sit down and have fun. You had to figure it the fuck out.
This is an interesting thing I bought. Maybe not interesting. Hey, you ever heard of Star Wars Episode 1 Racer?
Nope.
You have. It came out on the PC. Did you know that, Tyler?
Oh, you mean the classic arcade game that got a bunch of ports that don't matter?
Yeah.
Yes.
That one, which also got produced by Limited Run and put on a Star Wars action figure blister card.
Yes. I forgot about the Limited Run one, but yes.
I found one for $5, so I bought it.
All right. Nice. The PC one? You bought a PC game?
It was $5.
It was a PC game that you could have got on consoles. In fact, I know you probably own multiple console versions, but you still bought it. I'm so proud of you, Johnny.
It was $5. I just bought it. I was like, $5. I love Star Wars games. I'm going to do this.
All right.
I bought some Spider-Man games because I'm thinking about talking about Spider-Man games, so I want to prepare myself for that. And other things I'm preparing for. So just my hints to you guys. I bought some PS2 games with movie tickets like Lara Croft Tomb Raider, The Angel of Darkness, and Peter Jackson's King Kong, the movie game, because it had the movie ticket. And just to be clear, I love movie ticket variants. They are my favorite. I try to buy them for all the consoles if I can. I just love a movie ticket variant. So, yeah, that's what I bought. I bought kind of I went through this lull of not buying anything, and I was like, let's spend like $100 on junk. So that's what I went and did.
Man, that happens to me, like where I'll buy nothing, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy 5 board games.
Yeah, just no. Yeah, like we also bought some puzzles because my wife and I've been doing puzzles. Oh, I bought Lego Star Wars Deluxe. I forget to mention that because I bought it back in August of 2020, and then Best Buy was like, we ran out of the pre-orders. I was like, there's no fucking way you ran out of the pre-order. Okay, I'm like, you find me that Star Wars Steelbook. I pre-ordered this in August of 2020. You definitely didn't have people before me getting the Steelbook. Okay, so find me a Steelbook, all right? Because I pre-ordered it 2 years ago.
Don't pre-order games. What is wrong with you people pre-ordering games? You didn't get that because you pre-ordered it 2 years in advance. You got it because you complained. So,
yeah, I know. I mean, and I didn't, to be clear, I would not yell people at that. I explained my situation calm. I was like, hey guys, a long time ago, can you help me out here? Because you should not yell at customer service workers. That's a shitty thing to do. It's not their fault. They're just working there. They didn't make the decisions. Anyways, they accommodated me. And to be fair, I did buy that game on pre-order from Best Buy, a place I don't like to buy games from, specifically because it did have that Steelbook. Because it's the Steelbook, even though I don't like Steelbooks, is Han Solo and Carbonite, and I love that. I even have I've got a PlayStation, a PSP case, also Han Solo and Carbonite, which was a pre-order bonus. I love me some Han and Carbonite. What can I say? So, yeah, I very intentionally bought that. So,
I saw a bunch of people buy that. I mean, people like those older Legos. Is this old? Does this include like the first
this is
movies,
new.
or
This
just new? Oh,
this
wow.
is all new. So it's the 9 movies, and then there's going to be some DLC. Best Buy had the Steelbook. They eventually they got a second shipment. And I think there's a lot more of those Steelbooks available, at least for the Switch now. As far as I know, you could still get it by just buying the game on Best Buy, just even the regular version. So fear not, people who want a Steelbook, but the first day they were like pretty limited, and I was kind of panicking because they were selling for like $80. I was like, this is a dumb thing I will buy, and I don't want to spend $80 on it, especially when I did all the prep work. Oh no. So anyways, yeah, I did that, and I played some Elden Ring. Nope, that's it. Let's do the thing where we wrap up the show for real. Hey guys, tell me where we can find you, Stefan.
Easily just Google Art of Nintendo Power. That's the easiest way to find me. The next thing that I'm doing, if you don't know, I run a 501c3 nonprofit art museum, and we are going to have our next show at is it Game On Expo in Phoenix, Arizona in August. So if you want to see the show in real life, the Art of Nintendo Power, you can see it there then. More shows hopefully scheduled throughout the year. Has Portland said when they're going to have a show yet? Because I'm supposed to be at Portland as well when that happens. But
I mean, it's October or the summer, right? I hope it's in the summer and not October, honestly.
Anyway, so whenever Portland actually happens, the show will also be there. But yeah, easiest if you actually want to talk to me, the easiest way to talk to me is on the Twitters at Art of NP. But like I said, you can just Google Art of Nintendo Power and you will find me.
All right. And Tyler?
I'm Default Gen, Default GEN. I'm on the Video Game Sages and Instagram, Johnny.
Yep, and you can find me on Instagram at Johnny_Iucci and on our Patreon. I really hang out on the Patreon the most now, or Patreon or Discord. And that's it. That's all we got. Hey, thanks for jumping in, Stefan. It's nice talking with you again.
Yeah,
Tyler,
it's nice to be here.
Tyler, always nice to talk to you. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. It was good hanging out. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll talk to you next time. Bye!
That is our show. No errata. I'm sure we didn't say anything too factual in this episode. I do have something I realized. This must be from like 5 episodes back. I mixed up the seventh guest with Phantasmagoria, which is something I do a lot. I have played and beaten Phantasmagoria, and the seventh guest is one of those games like I played a little as a kid and got nowhere in. I don't really know anything about the seventh guest. If you say the seventh guest to me, there's like a 60% chance I'm thinking of Phantasmagoria. Anyway, no one cares about PC games. Thank you to 8-Bit, APE-Bit, like the monkey, 8bit.bandcamp.com. He does our intro music. And thank you to the patrons, Richard, patron number 1, Bowden, Canadian variant alert, Chris Glidden, Nintendo World Champion, Daniel Jacksvick, high-end collector, Andrew Brim, greetings, stranger. I'm not surprised to see Andrew Shelton around here. 50 Hertz is good enough for me, Andre. Video games were meant to be slabbed, Brandon Ackley, Brian Gupta, and Pocky and Rocky with Becky. Mint condition, Brian J. Mora, the strictly limited super rare Bruno, Fat Cat Collector, Chris Jackson, Chris SNK, Too Many Accessories, Jesus, Morozek, Johnny's GBA Hookup, Coffee with Mr. Saturn, Playing with Power, Connor Strange, The Last Game You Need for the Set, Corey O'Brien, Unpunched Hang Tab, Dustin Beagle, he has returned to judge this city, Eric Addison, Man of Nintendo in the World of Nintendo, Funky Brewsta, another vinyl collector, really? Another vinyl collector, Grizzly X-Bear, the actual Shinobi, Just Sonic the Kid, Jeff the Game Boy Ferris, Red Pyramid Thing, Jonathan Shados, Joseph Garris, he's just out there having a good time achieving his goals. Proud of him. The Nintendo Tape Archivist, Joseph Leo, Lance, Lord Hardstyle Z, The Degenerate, Matt Ball, Mr. CIB, get your loose Genesis carts out of here. Funkoland employee, platform agnostic, read the Game Shark. The Famicom Box, retro game enthusiast. I guess I have to clarify. Famicom Box is like a demo unit that retro game enthusiast collects. This is just like a jumble of words if you don't know what these words are. So he is the Famicom Box, but his actual online handle is retro game enthusiast. Someone out there actually listens to this end part who was missing that. They can beat Ghosts and Goblins twice, Chefish, vintage video game connoisseur who knows they're better than modern games, The Fuzzy, Sean, the Gamer Collective, the New Craft who can beat Mega Man without the pause trick, previously unknown variant Tim Walker, from the internet Todd Fisher, can't put limits on collecting VG Collectaholic, like he needs another shout out this episode, The Millennium, Will Joe, Keeper of the Zelda variant, 0x Def Code, getting the full PS2 set because Stefan won't, all caps, no gods or kings, only Andy Lancaster. What a 9.8, A++ Benji, the actually rare Bird Dog Gaming, dropping the Mario 64 Penguin off the map, Brandon Chalker, Brandon Rogers, whose favorite episode is the wrestling episode, still finding deals in 2022, Colton Murphy, a winner is him, David Green, Derek Lauer, who made me edit this show, Don Libby, the hero of time, Double Ugly presents Double Ugly, the official game of the movie, actually understands the Zelda timeline, Jeff Pierce, he is Error, Jeff Russell, Jeremy Jarvis, here for the Pog Talk, Joe actually plays his games, Champ Pity, video game art collector because video games are art, Justin Chichio, Lateral Movement, who's got a Donkey Kong kill screen coming up, Michael, posted in the Discord right now, Chiara Monty, Nick the Video Game Database Morgan, Homebrew Mastermind, Divertov, untouchable. The other guy who collects Korean releases, Peaceful Games, Dungeon Master, Reed Stubenik, The Promoter, Retro RPG Podcast, Tom Obscure Variant Chaser Chase, Savantorian, he knows all 97 Nintendo games, 32 bits or less, do the math! Andrew actually collecting N-Gage O, I'm sure there's a set killer. Ben Parker, a bad enough dude to rescue the president. Chesno, all your base are belong to him. Colby, he is Sinistar. Corhagen does what Nintendo don't. Daniel McArdle, who thought this was the Retronauts Patreon. The Modern Database, Danny Gomez. More like the WADA Database, Danny Gomez. We'll workshop it. The Philatelist, Dork Overlord, My Childhood PlayStation Idol, Game-Rave.com, Joseph Rogers got 50,000 on Double Dragon, Collector of Everything, including Atari, Kalen McAteer, Sam, Sega Mark III Marks, Sean, the Video Game Illuminati LaCroix, and Runin, the Alphabetical Order, ending with Sean LaCroix. We've got Hedgemon of the Geek Empire, Valdor the Great. Thank you guys so much.